Alright, what's up everybody? Hi, hello, I'm Dovei, and welcome back to another rousing round of Around the Campfire. And this time we're going to be talking about a rather, well, not heated is not the right word, but a little bit of a touchy subject, but something I feel, should be talked about for my side of things. Want to give my 2 cents on it. Pokemon Sword and Shield, Gen 8 of Pokemon. It had a bit of a tumultuous pre-release hype, if you can call it that. But how did the games fare upon release? I will be talking with some friends about that exact subject for the next however long. I don't know. I don't script these things. You should know that by now. Anyway, feel free to introduce yourselves. We are recording.
You first, Sarah.
Oh, okay. I guess since I'm new around here. Well, I'm just Air. I came here because Sword and Shield was the first Pokemon game I've played since Diamond and Pearl, so it kind of
Nice.
got me back into the series as a whole.
Cool.
I'm Lescart. I've basically played all the Pokemon games from the original Gen 1 up to Sword and Shield now. Especially some of the remakes.
You've played pretty much every Pokemon game then?
Mainline, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't played all the spin-offs either.
Yeah, I've tried from a little bit. That's for something else.
Right. So, I'm sure y'all are pretty much well aware how interesting the pre-release coverage of this game was, especially on social media. A lot of controversies, a lot of changes people were not at all happy with. Specifically, mostly the biggest one being the cuts to the national dex. Like, not every Pokemon is in this game. You can't, as the title would suggest, catch them all. But, that was like the first thing people were like really, really, really mad about. I'll give my thoughts on that in a second, but I'm curious, what did y'all think of the dex cuts, like, when it was announced before the games came out? Like, what was your impression about Dexit, as a lot of people are calling it?
Yeah. At first I was like pretty irritated because, I'd like to make my dream team. Like, I feel like a lot of people would want to make their dream team in like every Pokemon game. But as time went on, I kind of thought about it like, as a lot of the games you can only get like at most 400 Pokemon in like that one game. Otherwise, it's transfers or what have you.
Yeah, you have to transfer from a previous gen and all that.
Yeah, which you can kind of do with Pokemon Home, I think. That's for transferring directly to Sword and Shield.
Mm-hmm. And again, you're not going to get the full national dex out of that, but they are adding, like, there's a lot of Pokemon in the game's code that are going to be transferable from Sun, Moon, and XY, I think.
Potentially. Yes, Air's thoughts.
I didn't really have. It wasn't really much of a problem for me. I completely kind of glazed over that because I was never really up to date with the series in the first place. I was never really. It never really affected me in a way. It was just like, okay, because I never actually thought I would get the game until a friend of mine was like, hey, did you pick up Sword and Shield? And I was like, I don't even have a Switch. It's like, well, you should get it so I can trade with you. It's like,
Get the
well,
game so I can complete the dex.
yeah, it's like, then I remembered that the more I saw a little bit about it, that was like, oh, it's an open world kind of, or more open than it was.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. I kind of want to try that. So I just picked it up for that. And then the Dex thing was never a problem for me because, to be honest, as somebody who's probably just going to play it casually, maybe complete the entire Dex here, catching every single one from the previous generations probably would have been a little bit off-putting to somebody getting back into it.
Yeah. Honestly, I've never caught them all. I did once for Red on, like, a hack that put every single Pokemon in the game. I haven't even done that for Crystal yet, and then I've played a hack that did the same thing and added every single Pokemon. I've never caught them all. I mean, despite that being the tagline, it's never been my goal. I mean, it was at first kind of irritating, like, you know, from an emotional, nostalgic standpoint, like, no, that's the thing, we gotta catch them all. I want to make my dream team of all of them. But, like, the more you learn about game dev and how it's not as easy as just Control-C, Control-V, the less it bothered me. And what bothered me more was the reaction from the fan base, quote unquote. Like, people were taking it very, very personally that, like, the dex wasn't fully complete and whatnot. And, like, the more time that went on with the outrage about Sword and Shield that just kind of snowballed, you know, getting closer and closer to release, with, like, you know, mistranslated interviews and, you know, various other things people just wanted to be mad about. People are like, oh, this is, like, failed, Game Freak is lazy, blah, 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 blah. And, like, the more time that went on, the less I cared about the things that I probably would have cared a little bit more about and would have been a deal breaker outside of, you know, people getting, like, really stupid with, you know, outrage and stuff.
Right. And then,
yeah, go on.
for me, like, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here because why not? I can kind of see it because of it. It is personal for them because they want to be able to have their team, and when there's only certain ones being brought from previous generations instead of most or just none at all, it's like, why are these allowed to be in the game instead of these ones?
Yeah. And that's a question that me and some friends who have played through the game virtually together have asked. Like, okay, why is this here but not this? This is silly. But, like, it was never a sticking point, and certainly nothing that justified the reaction that, you know, we would see. Like, people got pretty crazy. I won't go completely down that rabbit hole, but, like, I will say the reaction didn't necessarily justify the announcements and the cuts and stuff.
Did kind of get a bit overreactive.
Yeah. It stopped, like, the more quote-unquote deal breakers that the quote-unquote fan base were getting upset about, the less it became a deal breaker, and it was more of a, okay, if this is truly what resolved me to buy Pokemon Sword in the end was I've been playing since Red, Blue, Yellow, all the mainline games I've played, and, like, if this really is as bad as people are making it out to be, then fine, I wasted $60 and I won't support the games in the future. But I'm gonna judge it off my own merits. That's how I've always done it. That's how I've always handled, you know, playing games, especially when I used to stream, like, on the regular and whatnot. Like, I'm gonna play this game. I'm gonna judge it on its own merits, and I'll make up my own mind rather than listening to the mobs or listening to the review people or listening to the clickbaity tinfoil hat side of YouTube. Honestly, I really, really, really enjoyed my time with Pokemon Sword. Was it perfect? No, but honestly, I think I enjoyed it a lot more than I did the last two gens, almost combined, and that's saying something, because I liked X and Y, and I liked Sun and Moon, and I still need to beat Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, but I actually had more fun with Sword, with all the cuts and imperfections and flaws and everything else, than I did with the last two gens. It felt more fun to me than the last two gens, personally.
Right. So,
I wanted to just point in, as since, like I said, this is the first one I played since, I don't, how many generations has it been since Diamond
4.
and Pearl? 4?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it's not really. You're at a point with the series where you have these fans that grew up with it. It's been from childhood, and they're probably in 20s now, maybe
20s, 30s.
Yeah, something around there. But you also have the new generation, so you have to kind of decide who do you want to go after. Do you want to target just the existing fans, or do you want to focus on and get more people interested in it and get another group or another wave of people that'll stick with it for another 20 or 30 years?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if uh, you put everything in there for those young people, they're just gonna look at it and be like, "There's so much to do. What do I do?"
Mm-hmm.
I do. You get to the point it's like, Sword and Shield was the first Pokemon game that I actually ever finished, because I'd always get to the final battles, and then I'd have one or two strong party members, but the rest of them were just weak. So the first two get knocked out, and then I just lose from then.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the quality of life, it just seems a lot geared towards pulling more people in rather than catering to just what the existing fans want.
I agree with that in a lot of... Sorry, go on.
I think another thing on like the audience they're trying to pull in, like it always has been directed towards younger audience.
Mm-hmm.
That has never really changed, and I feel like most of the backlash is coming from people in the older audience who kind of don't want to let go.
Yep. At some point, you gotta wonder, who am I making this for? For the, like, it goes both ways. It is a double-edged sword. Like, you have this audience that has supported from the very beginning, that are going to continue to support, but you don't want to, push them aside for a newer audience completely, because they're your loyals, and building completely for a newer audience is risk. Like, if they don't like what you're selling and you've burned your bridge with the crowd that you've had since the very beginning, well, then that's a huge loss. But that isn't how I felt about what Pokemon was doing. I think this gen could be a good foundation to build upon future gens to, do better and improve upon, maybe have the full national dex at some point. The game is like, Sword and Shield are still relatively new. We could still get a third version or an Ultra Sword, Ultra Shield, or what have you. We could still get... There's still a lot of possibility for this gen. The gen literally just started. But, like, going back to the point, yeah, do you want to only cater to that rose-colored glasses crowd and alienate a new audience? Like, you had to have played all these other games to make sure you've caught them all at this point, or else you're never catching them all. Or do you want to kind of, sort of, start fresh? And I think this was a good compromise.
Right.
I just
So-
want to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say, like, my only real vision for them being able to bring in like a national dex again, because I don't think they plan on doing it for, at least not Sword and Shield. I remember hearing something about that they just completely declined that they're going to add any more Pokemon, at least the entire list. I mean,
Yeah.
but the way I see them being able to do that for a future game is like doing like a MMO style kind of thing, where they actually drop in maybe one or two regions and then go from there. They
Do
can
expansions.
expand expansions, yeah.
That would be cool.
To be honest, I'm surprised that's something that hasn't already come up or hasn't been rumored. I know that there was that, I think it was that fan-made game that came out a year or two ago that was supposed to be something like that. I don't know how
Right.
that went, but
I think it might have
you'd
been
think
taken
that something
down.
that big would be, oh, when's it gonna happen? It's like, I always wanted this, when's it gonna happen?
Honestly, yeah. That would be nice. Something like that. You could even do it with, like, the wild area, sort of just make an entire game based around the wild area. I would love that. Make it a little more open and whatnot. Of course, Dev Hell would be what it is. You'd have to have like a few years of side games if you're keeping up the
Yeah.
yearly release and filler out the anime to hell and back. But
Speaking of wild areas, I was kind of hoping there was at least one more wild area.
I agree with that. It seemed like
Yeah.
there was like a section missing.
yeah, I don't know about missing. But it definitely feels like they could have done a third segment that unlocked post game. I was always under that impression that, like, you beat the champion, you beat the game, and then a new, like, super dangerous, uncharted part of the wild area became unlocked, and that's where, like, a lot of the post game stuff would happen. That would have been really cool. I almost don't even want to say that's a missed opportunity. It's just what could have been more than anything else.
Yeah. I For me, I was expecting there to be a wild area between uh forgot the name of it off the top of my head. The second major city and Winden.
Hammerlock and Winden.
Yeah,
Yeah.
instead of just being the a rather small victory road, I guess you would call it.
Well, I mean, it wasn't even really a victory road. Like,
Yeah.
it kind of. One thing I liked about Sun and Moon was that it ditched the gym thing and did trials and was doing something completely different at a time where Breath of the Wild completely threw the formula out the window and just practically reinvented the wheel and made something amazing. And I was hoping that Pokemon would, as a series, continue to expand in that direction. And then, of course, you know, we revert back to gyms and, you know, gym leaders and badges and champion and Pokemon League and stuff like that. And that's not a bad thing. It worked. It worked 6 generations before, and it worked again, you know, and honestly, the game felt really good. You know, it didn't feel like the game regressed from having gone in a new direction to going back into familiar territory, in a manner of speaking. Even if it did, like, subtly reinvent the Elite Four, sort of.
I do have to say, walking into the first gym and herding Wooloos was just, it was an amazing thing.
The gym missions are fantastic. That's something I will absolutely fistfight people over.
Right.
Most of them.
Sorry.
Go on, yeah.
Compared to like Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, or just Moon, Sun and Moon, the trials, they felt really underwhelming compared to like everything else. Like, you just go through this entire trial and then you fight a slightly like more powerful Pokemon, but even then it's like easy to overcome.
An annoying mid-boss, but like definitely way easier than, say, a gym leader.
Right.
I think the most traditional gym, as it were, in the entire game would have been the water challenge, where it was like that traditional maze.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminded
Everything
me a
else
lot
was
of Great Bay Temple from Majora's Mask.
I think
A
my
little bit,
favorite
yeah.
was the fire.
My favorite was the 7th, but that's for entirely different reasons. Spike-Myth is just the best part of the entire game.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
good point. I just think that the whole concept of catching Pokemon inside the gym, which I actually caught my Litwick, I think it is. I don't know. I named it Litfam.
Nice.
For obvious reasons. In
Yeah.
the gym.
Litwick is what it's called.
Okay. I don't have my Pokemon, my Pokédex in my brain yet.
Well, that's fine. I mean, you said you hadn't played it all since Gen 4, and you hadn't even intended on getting this game. It's just that someone got it for you, so, you know,
Oh,
may
no,
as well.
Yeah, they convinced me to get it.
Oh, okay, well, same thing, kind of.
Yeah. I did intend to get a Switch at some point, because it seems, for completely obvious reasons, it seems like more developers are developing for the Switch instead of, like, the PlayStation, which is what I usually would get. And I wasn't gonna get a new PlayStation 5 whenever that comes out anyway, so...
I never get a console on launch. That's an entirely different subject, but yeah, I never get a console on launch. I wait to see what games come out for it, and you know, I wait for the first price drop and initial bug fixes, because they're always buggy messes on launch. They're like no exception.
Oh, this might be a thing that was that's been a thing for a while, but I do like how they changed the nurseries around. So it's not just you drop Pokemon off and then you come back and then you could be in debt.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's been a thing for a couple gens now, where the nursery doesn't actually level your Pokemon anymore, which is a godsend. As nice as it is to have a level 100 Ditto that just runs the place, I didn't like the idea of my team getting leveled and moves getting overwritten, especially if I had used a TM. And back before Gen 5, when they were not infinite use, they were one-time use. So it's like, okay, cool, I taught my water starter Ice Beam, and it just got erased for, I don't know, like, Growl or something. Yeah, like it gets replaced by something completely worthless.
Sand Attack.
Yeah, it'll get, like, completely overwritten by something because I left it in the daycare, like, a few steps too long or something. I like that they don't level you anymore. That's been a very welcome change. It's not a new one to this gen, but it's one I've welcomed. Like, the quality of life stuff I guess this is a good segue to that. The quality of life stuff that has been introduced over the years, mixed reviews from a lot of people, but I've personally, you know, you look back to like the older gens and it's like, God, I could really use this feature from newer game, insert thing from newer game here. I could really use that right about now.
Oh yeah, I can see that. I've never played the original red, blue, or yellow, but from what I understand, go if you just looking back at it, back then you didn't have the ability to refight trainers or
Hmm.
really get money. In the essence, you had a set amount of money that you could earn throughout the game, and that was it.
Hmm. Up until you could grind the Elite Four, that was your only source of like repeatable money. Or like, using the missing no glitch to get like infinite nuggets or something. Which then you're
And,
probably gonna risk, completely destroying your game or whatever.
and now I have a whole bunch of money
Hmm.
that I don't know what to do with, although there are quite a few clothing options that I really want to pick up just because I can.
Yeah. Like, money's a lot easier to get in this gen than any other Pokemon game ever combined. Money is stupid easy to get. However, there's outfitting, there's, glamoring and stuff like that. There's competitive battling. You can buy the vitamin items, which are really expensive. And
That,
like there's a lot more, like, money is very easy to get, but it's also a lot easier to like spend.
that reminds me, not once during a trainer fight did I see anyone use an X item.
Oh yeah, no,
And
NPCs almost never have. I think they did some point in the middle of the series they would use something that like didn't really do anything.
I think in Gen 3 in Norman's gym, that'd be the fifth gym you go into.
because I remember in Sapphire, in the Elite Four fights, it was common to see that they'd start off with an X special or an X attack.
Mm-hmm. In a way that gave them depth, but it also wasted one of their turns, which made it a lot easier in my opinion.
That's a good point. There was a trade-off there.
Like, yeah, sure, they're buffing themselves, but they also lost like a third of their health, so what good is it really gonna do them?
Or in the case of how it seems to go now, it's you lose that turn and you very well could lose that entire battle
Mm-hmm.
because you lost the Pokemon in one shot.
I mean, in the competitive scene, those moves get a lot more use than in casual. But like,
Yeah.
casually, these games aren't meant to be difficult. The most difficult mainline Pokemon game I'd ever played before this was Platinum. Gen 4 was like the peak of difficulty for me. And the games have been like easier-ish ever since. This game isn't as easy as, say, X and Y. X and Y is the easiest Pokemon game I've ever played. It was almost embarrassing how ridiculously easy Gen 6 was. Well, at least XY. Oras was different, but X and Y needed a third game or a sequel or an Ultra or something. Like XY was just like really, really, really way too easy. Like, people complain about the hand-holdiness, like the always-on EXP share, which never bothered me. By the end of the game, my highest level Pokemon was on par with Leon's highest level Pokemon, so like I never ran into an issue of being overleveled, and I screwed around a lot. I had, various different reports from other people, like, oh, I was like 10 levels under, and that battle took me forever, that sort of thing. So like, yeah, the EXP share on feels handholdy, but at the same time, I kind of chalk that up more to quality of life at this point. Like, it's just nice to have. I was never going to turn it off in the first place.
Yeah, I agree, because that was the biggest thing that I disliked about the other games is you'd get up there and then it would take forever. You'd have those two strong party members, but you'd have to go back and one at a time, or maybe one and then 1.5 at a time because of the EXP share,
Mm-hmm.
get everybody else up, and that would just take forever. But with this, you don't have to worry about that so much. You can just go at a steady pace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think with the considering they added the raid battles, they actually give you a ton of experience from the items that get like drop.
Those candies are a godsend.
Yeah, those were very helpful in a pinch, especially when you'd get into I think it was whenever I was fighting Beatty, that
Mm-hmm.
was when I would use them because I'd come out and it's like, oh great, now I need a specialized team.
Mm-hmm. I liked the multiple rivals thing. I always have, and I like that we finally, for like the first time in several gens, had a rival that was not afraid to be a jerk ass about it. Like, it was the first time since Blue and Silver that we've had a rival that was just outright just a cocky little ass, and I loved it. And ironically, he turned out to be one of the better characters, and the characterization in this gen was really, really good.
It really was actually Hop, especially since he's like the first person you meet and he's your friend, childhood friend, and he's actually got a bit more depth than just I'm gonna win.
Mm-hmm. Like, people like to draw a lot of comparisons between Hop and Hao from Sun Moon, but Hop is a lot deeper than that. He actually has a reason to want to be a trainer. He doesn't want to look bad with, next to his completely undefeated champion brother. He doesn't want to bring down the family name. And he kind of develops this inferiority complex over the course of the game. And, you can see a lot of drive in him. So, Galarian Hao all you like, but Hao was just kind of, I lost, okay, whatever, I'm just going to smile the entire game. And it's not to say Hao didn't have a character, but, there's a lot of differences.
Didn't feel like he was, reacting as he should.
Mm-hmm. He wasn't really a rival. He was, a friend that, battled with you sometimes and, helped you get better. But, otherwise wasn't really a rival. He was just this... He was, an above-average trainer that battled you every now and then.
It felt like kind of a replacement for gym leaders besides Kahunas.
Yeah. X and Y was just ridiculously too easy, had no post-game. Base Sun Moon was really easy. You had infinite berries all the time. As soon as you get one Lepa berry, you have 200 Lepa berries. It was kind of silly because of how that game worked. If you had time and patience anyway and didn't use them all the time, you basically had infinite berries. And, the trials were cool, but you were essentially fighting one beefed up Wildmon that you couldn't catch, like a mini boss rather than a boss, which was fine. It was something different, and I wish they'd continue to explore breaking the formula. But a return to form for Sword Shield wasn't a bad thing ultimately. One of my favorite things about the game is like I said earlier, the characterization. The characters had personality. They felt alive. The world felt alive because of them. Your main rival had motivation. Your other rivals had good personality. Everything involving Team Yell was really good. Leon had a good personality. There were a couple characters that kind of fell short, but ultimately there was actual character growth and character development when there usually wasn't. The last time I noticed any character development and actual a good characterization was Black and White, and Black White 2, which I haven't finished, but yeah. It's been a while since I've seen characters that actually grow and feel like they're characters and that they have personalities rather than a template for a trainer. With the exception of Lily in Sun Moon, I didn't feel that from any character in Sun and... Well, okay, Guzma, but that doesn't count. So Guzma and Lily are the only two characters in that entire set of games that felt like they had any growth.
I'm trying to think. Because you mentioned Team Yell, I'm just that's probably my favorite team because they're literally just a fan club.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was talking to my friend when I first picked up the game. It's this was before I even knew about Team Yell. I was saying, I wonder what the the enemy's gonna be this time. You started off with organized crime, and then you had then you'd had Team Aqua and Team Magma, which were kind of eco-terrorists in a sense. They're trying to cover the world in water, cover the world in everything else.
essentially terraform or glass the planet, like drown or glass the
Yeah.
planet completely uninhabitable, but they'll think it's cool or something. It's like, no, you're just trying to destroy the world here.
And then you went to I want to destroy time.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
then I dropped off. And then it's just like, oh, we just really want this person to win.
I'm glad you covered this because like that's been a point of contention of mine for a while. Is that you start off with the Poke Mafia and Team Rocket, which is cool. You know, it's just an organized crime. Like, you know, you enter this new world where Pokemon are like the central focal point of like civilization entirely. Like, Pokemon help literally keep the world running. So of course there's gonna be a group of people, ne'er-do-wells, who want to use it to control the world and make money. That's pretty cool. They're evil, they're bad guys, but you know, it's pretty down to earth. It's pretty relatable, understandable. It's a thing I can accept that exists. And then Aqua Magma is like, we want to completely change the entire atmosphere of this entire world to suit our personal preference, I guess. Which is like, okay, a little bit more Saturday morning. They're kind of incompetent at it, but like, you know, they're involved in the plot. They have a motivation. It's an escalation for sure. Then you get you know, Team Galactic, which is just like, we want to remake the entire world, no, the entire dimension for just us because the world sucks, so we're gonna make it better for us and just screw the rest of you, I guess. And then Team Plasma, which was just Pokemon PETA, which is a huge step up in evil for, you know, compared to remaking the universe. They were all kinds of bad.
Yep.
And then Team Flare, which was, oh, Fashion Police. Okay, cool. I'm guessing we're just gonna take it down. And not just kidding. They want to literally destroy everything and destroy all life. Like, what the fuck? You were cooler as Fashion Police.
Yeah, it's like they had the idea and then they were like, wait, we gotta make them actually evil.
Like,
Which I don't know why.
I don't know why either. Like, Team Flare would have been probably my favorite team if they had literally just stayed Fashion Police. If that was their entire shtick, and Lysander, like, in a plot twist, wasn't the leader of Team Flare, but just like this orange-haired dude that existed for some reason, then I would have liked Team Flare a lot more. But no, they had to go full Saturday morning. We're gonna destroy the entire world forever and kill everybody because we can, even our own people, but they don't know that. And it's like, we're gonna broadcast this on national television. It's like, this was a step down in terms of tone and atmosphere from Black White. It was, you know, lightening the mood a little bit, and then you go to that all of a sudden in the 7th gym, or after the 7th gym, and it's like, yeah, okay, cool, the Fashion Police now have a death ray. And then
Give the Fashion Police a death ray.
yeah, but then after that we have Team Skull, which is literally just a street gang. All they do is they kidnap one Pokemon ever and just do really crappy street raps at people, and everybody just ignores them because they're literally just a nuisance. They took over a town that was theirs, and they graffiti sometimes, and you know, they stole a Pokemon from like a preschooler, and we beat them up and got it back. And like, but that was it. They didn't have some secret agenda to destroy the world. They were a street gang.
Before I mention this, how far did you get in Sun Moon again?
I beat it. It's
Oh, you
Black
did
White.
beat
It's Ultra Sun Moon. I didn't beat.
Okay. Yeah, they on their own they weren't actually that harmful. It's just when they got involved with Guzman, specifically, I mean, is what was really harmful.
Mm-hmm. And even then, like, he didn't really contribute to that plot as much as he was just kind of there as a part of it and called us stupid for trying to take it on, and then we won, and he's like, well, damn.
Do you ever get to that part in Sun Moon or Ultra Sun Moon though?
No, I don't think so. It's been a long time.
It's quite a bit different.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind. I need to play that, and then I need to play Black White too.
Okay.
But it's like, you start off with the Poke Mafia, then Poke Eco Terrace, then, you know, we want to remake the world. No, we want to destroy the world, and then Sup. And then Team Yell as cheering on Marnie specifically.
And you can't wake up the don't wake up the Pokemon on the side of the road.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which was an obvious front, and everyone knew it was an obvious front, but it was still fun. You know, they were ultimately even more harmless than Team Skull.
Yeah, they didn't steal anything. They just kind of got in everyone's way.
They were a nuisance and cheered for Marnie, and that's it. And this gets into my favorite part of the game. Everything that happened in Spike Myth really threw the entire game a lot higher on my list. It didn't take long for Pokemon Sword to eclipse X and Y for me. It took about 2, maybe 3 gyms, or maybe seeing the wild area once. X and Y, and pressing start, it put it above 1 and 3 for me. I did not like Gen 1 or 3 at all. I mean, I respect Gen 1 for starting the series, but it's a beta. It's a very buggy mess of a beta that I've tried to replay a bunch of times and just, I can't. Every time I try to, it's just like, God, this is really bad. How do I don't harp on people, for the record, I don't harp on people for saying Gen 1 is their favorite. For having a favorite, that is, you know, whatever. I like this thing the most. Cool. No further argument or discussion needed. But when people say Gen 1 was the best, like objectively the best, like, all right, hold up.
I honestly say Gen 2 would be a lot better because Gen 1's basically a beta.
It feels like it, and like it feels like when you play Red, Blue, Yellow, and then play Gold, Silver, Crystal, it's like Gen 2 feels more like a complete game and less buggy and stuff like that. And then Gen 2 just, like, it feels like a complete game. Gen 1 feels like a complete beta. Like, not even just how buggy it is, because every Pokemon game is buggy to some extent, but yeah.
And then for me, I think I have that, this is what I first started off with, because I kind of like Gen 3, because that's what I started off with.
It was the same for me. Like, I started with Gen 3, and I love the generation to bits, but I can't say it's the best one.
Yeah, there are some good things. I haven't seen a Sproink in a while. I could use one of those. But
I think that one was one of the cuts.
yeah, I think I've found probably most of the ones that I've seen from 3, but
Yeah.
it's like, to be honest, I completely forgot about Sproink until just a few minutes ago. I was like, oh yeah, I remember going through the Ash Forest and then up to that little town there, and then suddenly there's a Sproink.
Mm-hmm. And then the Pokedex entry is just, like, horrible. If it ever stops bouncing, it's dead. Not fainted, not in. No, it just freaking dies. The Pokedex is dark. Like, in
Yeah,
every gen, the Pokedex just always has a few entries that are just, like, so freaking dark.
Yeah, just earlier today I was running around the forest to try and catch an Indeedee,
Mm-hmm.
and I caught a stump instead that was possessed by a child. Like,
Yep.
oh, okay, this is not what I came to the forest for.
Or like the Trevenant, the pre-evolution to Trevenant,
Oh, yeah.
like lost dead children.
Mm-hmm. Most of the ghost ones are really bad, but then, like, some of the other ones are, like, just as bad. Like, oh, if this thing stops moving, it's dead. It literally will die. It will have a heart attack and die, and it's your fault for putting it in a Pokeball. Screw you forever. You're horrible. And then, like, you know, obviously not all of them are like that, but, like, a lot of Pokedex entries are just like, oh yeah, this thing is dead, and it's haunting dead children, and it killed a child to become your partner or something.
And then you have Magikarp, which just gets the short end of the stick.
Mm-hmm. Well, for about 20 levels.
Yeah.
Then it becomes a freaking sea dragon that just eats everything out of pure anger.
Yeah,
Yes.
I started with I caught a Magikarp just to see what the Pokédex entry would be, and then when I got Gyarados, I was just like, I'm gonna make this my water type. Why not?
I thought about it for a while, but the Chewtle and Dreadnought it just kind of stuck with me, so.
Dreadnought is pretty powerful. I'll say that.
Mm-hmm. I liked it. I was happier when I caught a Gigantamax one, but
I'm not too fond of just the design of Chewtle though, personally. But
looks like knockoff Squirtle, kinda.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what I got.
It's got like the head of a bratty kid with a Squirtle body.
Yep.
Yeah, the dex entry for Zero Aura is kind of brutal to a degree. Like, imagine mixing the Flash with Raiden from Metal Gear Rising.
Jeez. That sounds horrible. But like,
Kinda.
while the characterization was really good, I feel like the plot for Sword and Shield was very lackluster as a whole by itself. Mm,
I agree. It was kind of like it was kind of spotty because
mhm.
the way I expected to go is like, you'd finish it and then you kind of, as you go along, you're getting like consistent doses of what's going on with like the side teams, like
Mhm.
with what Team Yell would be doing, or in this case, whatever's going on with the Dynamax phenomenon, which
Mhm.
I actually don't think I've gotten any real conclusion to yet, even after beating the game. But with this, it's just like, oh, here, we're gonna give it to you in a big chunk, and then we're gonna kind of glaze over it, and then right at the end, it's like, here it is. We're gonna wrap it all up, or try to.
And not really succeed at. And that's been a
Yeah,
problem for a few gens now. XY did something very similar. Like, the Team Flare resolution all happened after the 7th gym, and then the plot stopped. You beat the 7th gym, you do the plot, you get the box legendary, and then you beat the 8th gym, and then you do the Elite Four, and then it's game over. Like, nothing has relevance after that.
There's only like one last thing you can really do because of being the champion, and that's just going to find a 50% form Zygarde.
Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, like that's been a problem for a long time. I think they need to stop doing that. I think Pokemon needs to really like actually let us. It was one thing that frustrated me while I was playing the game, and now upon further like retrospect is like, no, this was actually kind of a huge glaring flaw for me. Is just the non-plot. Like, it would stop us and say, oh wow, there was an explosion, oh well, go on to the next gym, don't worry about that, let the champion handle it. It's like, no, I'm playing this video game, let me handle that, let me learn
it's like
about this world and this lore and everything, let me be a part of this, let me experience it. It's like, there's plot happening, but kindly ignore it, would you? Like, no. And then again, all happened all at once right after not Elite Four and before the champion. Like, oh yeah, by the way.
I guess
That-
for me, like it was actually kind of building up towards it. Like you were getting a hint towards Rose and all of the experiments, but it was more Leon. He wanted to make sure this was still going on. He didn't want anything to happen to end up making issues for the entire thing. Which that was one of his highest priorities.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I saw it. And then when it finally got to that point, it's like, here's that one moment.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I think it was for me. It was that buildup was there, but it was how the the culmination of it all was kind of flattened out because you get there, it's like, oh, we gotta go stop him, and you go up a tower. You don't even like have to explore the tower. You just go in an elevator, and then you're up on the tower. You fight. Okay.
See, I didn't even have a problem with that. It was the motivation of it. It's like, Leon is never late for dinner. We better go. Oh, he's with the chairman. Oh, we
Yeah.
better go stop him. Why? Like, at that point, we had no reason to suspect anything going on from Rose. We had no reason to believe anything nefarious was happening. And Oleana, of course, was hugely suspicious, and I was suspicious of Rose, but that's just, the veteran nostalgia goggles in me. It's like, that dude is like 1,000% evil. This
Yeah.
really nice dude that everybody loves, he's 1,000% evil, because that's how Pokemon's done villains since XY. This
For
person's
me-
really good. They just like milkshake duck their villains for like 3 generations.
For me, Rose was like, okay, he at the very start he seems wise, but then I got to that first little insight about him, and he's like, oh, he owns everything. I'm like, that's a red flag for me.
Mm-hmm.
Something's not right here. And
I
then you
will
get
say,
more and more. It's like, yeah.
Go on.
I will say that they did a lot better job hiding who the villain was, even if it's more obvious to like people who are more, perceptive.
Yeah.
Which for the younger audiences, they're probably gonna be like, "Oh no, is Rose this entire time?" Like, for us, yes, it's obvious, but
Yeah.
for Sun and Moon, Lusamine was obvious halfway through the game.
Yeah. And that's not just to the genre savvy either. It's like, yeah, this is very creepy undertones here. This woman is absolutely evil.
And building off of that, I think that when looking at it with like the older audience and then a younger audience, the issue at hand. It can be viewed in two different ways because the way I see it is that what Rose was trying to do is he's trying to stop some sort of like catastrophe far off in the future. But to me, that sounds like what he's referencing is something to do with the climate there. If he doesn't do something now, their way of life, if it continues, will eventually change and it won't be the way it is.
Right.
That's what I get. And then, but to a younger person, they might see that as like, oh no, he knows something bad will happen, and he's trying to stop it well in advance.
Mm-hmm. But it just kind of that whatever the motivation really was not conveyed well, in my opinion. Like, yeah, like it came off very. It came off like I get what they were going for, but it didn't really come off like that because, you know, we got to stop this catastrophe, but like it's 1,000 years off, but we got to stop it. We got to be responsible. But like, that's all well and good of a motivation. I can get behind that. But it was the whole, let's destroy our way of life and power up this like super legendary Pokemon with wishing stars. That's probably that's going to bring about the same catastrophe that was averted 1,000 years ago. Let's you know, it didn't come off. It came off very sloppy. It didn't come off as, you know, actually we're trying to save the world. It just, I feel like they should have hinted more at. Rose was very subtle and a good double twist because Oleana was very, very obviously evil from the very beginning. And Rose could, to someone who is not as genre savvy, have come off as, you know, a double twist in a way. But
With Oleana,
yeah,
she was just way too dedicated to him, not even realizing or thinking about maybe she shouldn't.
mm-hmm.
And with Rose, trying to figure out my line of thought with him, but he meant for the best, but he was way too stubborn to change his way of thinking.
And he went about it in a very extremist way without, like, actually talking to anybody. If there had been hints throughout the game that he was trying to do something with that legendary, whose name I can never remember or pronounce, Eternatus, I think?
I think so. I just remembered as the giant hand in the sky.
That was really cool. Like, that was a really cool thing. Like, that boss fight and that raids and Dynamaxing is probably some of the best things to happen to the series, in my opinion. I think it was really good balance-wise, made for some very interesting bosses, so to speak. Raids feel very dynamic. It's fantastic. But like, back on Rose, if they had hinted throughout the game what he was collecting the wishing stars for, and that people were turning a deaf ear to his reasoning, and then he snapped and wanted to go extreme and bring about the darkest day again, then, you know, that would have at least been a lot more believable of a motivation. Yeah. But just coming out of the blue of, I want Leon to do this thing for me instead of doing the championship match, and it has to be right now, and we have to do this right now to prevent this 1,000 years in the future. And, like, that's cool, that's the message they're going for, but, like, if there had been more conversations between Leon and Rose throughout the game where Leon was completely turning a deaf ear to everything Rose was saying to make Rose go, you know what, you fuckers are going to listen now, I would have at least understood the motivation. But like, it just felt very, I'm doing this now because I say, oh, I lost? Okay, well, I'm gonna go be in jail now. Have a nice day.
Yeah, and two things to that. The first being, it seems like they tried to say something like that, but it was too late. Like when you get up there and you have that dialogue between Leon and Rose up there on the tower, it's like, oh, you never listen. Well, it's like, okay, you never listen, but we don't know how long that's been going on for, really.
Mm-hmm.
And then
that conversation should have happened like halfway through the game.
Yeah, I agree. And then before that, when you fight Rose down in the power plant, it seemed so weird to me because you fight him and he's just like, I forgot how good it was to fight, and then he just says, "Go on."
Yeah, no, like he just stops his plan because he lost a battle. Fine, that's the Pokemon formula. You win a Pokemon battle, or you lose a Pokemon battle, you're done. But, like, he just hard gave up. He's like, oh, that sucks. Like, it felt like he had this carefully crafted plan for the entirety of our gym challenge of collecting wishing stars and using bead to do it. And, like, you know, and then just gives up like that. Like, it happens all at once and then it ends all at once. Kind of a side effect of not letting us have anything to do with the plot until it happens, but, like, you know, the biggest point of contention with the plot, and this was while I was playing it, I said this already, but I can't stress this enough, is the reason we went up the tower in the first place felt so contrived. Like, yeah, we had to go up that tower to resolve the plot. That was what needed to happen. Fine. But because he was late to dinner, like, Piers came in and said, oh yeah, he's having dinner with, or he's having a very important meeting with the chairman. He's the champion, and apparently in Galar, that's, like, a high position of, like, respect and power, to where the owner of the entire everything region, through sister companies and whatnot, he just regularly has a conversation with this one person because they're that important. Like, oh, okay, well, that kind of sucks, I'm disappointed, but hey, we'll have dinner with him tomorrow after the championship match. No, he's having a meeting with the chairman who we've never suspected because, you know, the plot has not literally happened. We better go stop him. Literally, why? Like, that dinner could wait. We can come back to this. Like, why do we have to stop him? This is, like, what he does. He's done this a lot. He's had these meetings throughout the course of the game. Why do we need to go stop him because he was late for dinner? That makes no sense.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like Leon says, it's like, I'll do what you want. Just wait for tomorrow.
Pretty much, too. That was another thing.
Yeah,
like,
we could say the same thing. It's like, we can stop him, but we could wait for tomorrow.
Like, all of us that have been on this particular gym challenge will literally listen to whatever you have to say after the conclusion of this gym challenge. It was an ordinary gym challenge. I mean, less so because we unseated the undefeated champion, but, like, it's like, why couldn't Rose wait a day? Like, okay, you'll listen to me after this season? Alright, fine, I'll hold you to it, though. And then, like, all of us, like, player character, Hop, Marnie, Bede, Piers, Leon, everyone's gonna listen. Alright, and then Rose could be like, alright, here's the situation. We need to, like, fix this now, and here's what I'm planning. And it could have been, we need to stop him because this plan is just batshit crazy. But, like, it would have made more sense. Instead of, no, I'm interrupting the championship match and bringing about the darkest day to save everybody 1,000 years from now. Because reasons it's never explained.
You know, that could actually be a pretty, imagine this as if, instead of just being one game, but two, where the first one was actually just building up to that, where you beat the champion, and then Rose comes up and says, you beat him, I have a job for you.
Yeah. That would have been cool too. It would have been sequel bait, but, like, we're probably getting one anyway. There's a lot of subtle hints in Sword Shield for a sequel. There's a lot of hints.
Yeah. And even if it wasn't a sequel, but just like a post-game content sort of thing.
I don't know how much of the post-game you've explored. I will ask at least this. Have you caught your box legendary?
No, but I know where I can get it. So, I've kind of been just going around catching everything else besides that.
Well, I mean, because there's a lot of plot that is involved. Yeah. And I, unfortunately, am going to go over that because it kind of goes into how I would fix the plot.
That's fine, considering, like, that's the only thing that I haven't seen yet. I'd find it eventually.
Okay, so do you care about spoilers? Because there is a post-game plot to an extent.
At this point, no.
Okay.
Because I could do it at any time, so the only thing stopping me is myself.
Okay. I just want to make sure you're cool with it before I just start blabbing on about it. But, like, so my biggest problem with the plot is they could have combined the main game and post-game. So after you beat the game, you go back to the Slumbering Weald, and I think you fight Hop, I don't remember. And then afterwards, these two douchebags, Swordward and Shieldbird, come in, and they steal the opposite artifact of your box legendary. They're the real descendants of royalty, and they're celebrities, so they can do what they want. And they're, like, awful characters. They're just not very well developed. They're just kind of douchebags for the sake of being evil and antagonists. And you go through this post-game plot dealing with them, And it kind of almost is Pokemon Sword Shield abridged in a way, because you go through the gyms, you don't fight the trainers again, but you fight a Dynamax at each and every gym except Spikemouth, obviously, because there's no spot there. And, you know, in between these, every now and then you fight one or two of, you know, one or both of the duo again. They're really easy. They're incredibly annoying. They're incredibly callous for the sake of just being characters you're meant to hate, but they're not really well written. And I feel like it would have been, like, Chairman Rose could have been a thing. Oleana dedicated to him could have been a thing. He could have had this plan, so on and so forth. But I feel like if, you know, the twists were like, you know, if we'd met these two douchebags halfway through the game, and they were the ones to bring about the Wishing Stars to Eternatus and bring about the Darkest Day and cause all this chaos, instead of Chairman Rose, it would have been a neat twist for those of us with nostalgia goggles and genre savvy. Like, oh, this obviously evil dude wasn't obviously evil? His secretary is just crazy devoted for an understandable reason? Okay, that was weird, but okay. These are the real villains? Okay. And just kind of combine the two plots and get your box legendary, like, right before or immediately after the championship fight or whatever. I felt like it would have carried more weight. But
I feel like it would have especially carried more weight if they were at least... they appeared when Eternatus, that's how I think it's valid and pronounced, I mean, but if they at least showed up, because there's descendants of the two kings, and the two kings were, I guess, present with the two legendaries that were the heroes. So where are they when they're the descendants of the heroes?
yeah, they just show up, they say they're the descendants of royalty, and they're celebrities, even though we've literally never seen them until post-game, and they come up and start some shit, and then they do the same thing Rose did of, oops, we lost a Pokemon battle and almost died to the legendary, we're gonna go be in jail now, have a nice day, thanks for showing us the error of our way by beating our asses a bunch.
They kind of pulled the fight and run for a while until one of them had a near-death experience.
Until, in my case, Zamazenta, like, nearly bit Shieldbert's face off. Yeah. Which is like, I know this is a children's game, but, you know, I'm kind of rooting for the dog to bite the guy's face off.
We have things possessing other things, so I don't see why we couldn't have at least, you know, him running off. We also have a bird that throws up Pikachus, so...
Yeah. I held a raid for that this morning, completely off topic, and, like, it filled up instantly. I don't know if that thing is meta or what, but it's like, I've never had a raid fill up that fast, and I've hosted a Ditto before.
Amazing.
But yeah, no, like, getting back to the plot, the like, barely existent plot, a lot of the issues could have been solved if they had let us actually take part in the plot, instead of just being told, no, let the champion handle it. Go do the gym part. And it's like, that's been a problem since XY. Like, the plot happens off screen until it literally cannot not be resolved by you going to solve it. And it's like, please let us enjoy the plot of this game. You build such good, wonderful lore. Please let us partake of it. More than just at the very end for 5 seconds. And it's been that way. It was that way in XY. It was that way to an extent in Sun Moon. It did a little better job of it, but it was still basically that. And then it happened again in spades for Sword Shield. Like, plot happens. Like, they directly tell you, plot's happening, but that don't worry about it. Just ignore the whole plot happening bit.
Now, one of the things that I was a little bit upset at, and now I know the professors have never really played that big of a role, but it seemed like they were really trying to make the professors have more of a role this time around, but it kind of fell short.
Sonya just shows up every now and then, drops a little bit of lore, which would be really interesting if we were allowed to explore it, but then tells you to go back to the gym challenge, because that's more important because reasons, I don't know. It's like...
And then every time she asked a question, it was like, oh, what could this mean? And then both of your options meant the same thing.
But
it
thou
was
must.
just a different phrasing of it.
Until you saw, like, that 5th tapestry at the cafe or restaurant.
Yeah.
You saw the poster that was, like, of the guy's face. And then there's the tapestry. I selected the poster, and she got distracted and was like, "Yeah, that's right." Uh, just a little bit of. It's
Oh,
just
yeah.
like a little bit of extra stuff. That's the only instance I saw that was like an actual option that could influence a bit of difference.
It feels almost in a way like FF14, where the dialogue options are just your character's personality. Like, it's just so weird to have such polar opposites of really, really good characterization, character growth, good, strong character development with a really weak plot. And I didn't know that that was possible, but
Yeah, and that's a really good point because Sonya herself actually has quite a bit of development.
she was Leon's rival, apparently.
Yeah, it's like that surprised me. It's like she's just somebody who's like, yeah, I kind of want to be a professor, but I really don't think I have what it takes. And then by the end of it, you know,
She's
out there
like,
doing that.
Hop literally echoes Sonya in like every regard for that. Like, I really hope we get a sequel and not a third version or an ultra version. I hope we get a sequel because the game felt like, looking back, almost a prequel without the source material. Like, and not in a bad way either. Like, it really felt like it was establishing lore. Like, Bede and Marnie becoming gym leaders. You can rematch Marnie in Spike Myth, by the way, which is fun. Yeah, like Sonya becoming a professor instead of Magnolia, and Hop becoming the professor's assistant, and Bede and Marnie becoming, gym leaders. It feels like a sequel would be really cool. I'll say that much at least. A sequel would be really, really nice with the way the characters have been established. Just, if you do a sequel, please let us actually partake in the plot more than just, 11th hour plot and then, okay, bye, and then nothing.
And given it that we'd be the champion in the sequel, or at least that's what it seems like we would be, given that whole relationship between Rose and Leon, it seems like we would be the go-to person for the plot. It's like, hey, I need this, somebody strong, a really good trainer to do this for me. You're
Assuming
the
we
only
got to
person
play
I
as
know.
the same trainer. Like,
Yes.
in Black White 2, that wasn't the case.
I feel like that'd be kind of weird to reuse the same trainer because you're going from one game to the other, assuming you play the first game,
Mm-hmm.
and
All of a sudden, you don't have your team and you're starting from, like, a Route 1 again.
it's like, what happened?
That would
feel
be-
like that could be the way that they change it up. Actually, it's like if you have the save data from this, you can choose to either start over fresh, from a new perspective, or go from where you left off as the champion.
Mm-hmm. Like, there's a lot of potential, and I love that word a lot, and I say it a lot. There is a lot of potential in a lot of games that have come out, and a lot of cases fell short, and a lot of cases did not. I haven't completely lost my faith in modern gaming. Look at Shadowbringers. Oh my god, look at Shadowbringers. I know you're not I don't know how big of an MMO person you are, Air, but like, Shadowbringers was one of the best things to have come out this year.
I've got a love-hate not love-hate. It's like I enjoy some MMOs if they're engaging, but after a while, I feel like if I don't play them, it kind of gets to me. It's like if I'm not playing them every day, then I'm kind of losing out on it, or I need to play them every day so I don't miss out on any of the content, or I'm not holding other people back because it's something that's like I'm on a raid team or something. So I don't really want to have that sort of
14 does a really good job of averting that for the most part, especially coming soon TM a plot crunch of A Realm Reborn. Like, it's actually getting a plot crunch, and it's not going to be nearly as bad as it is right now. And you don't have to worry about holding people back in 14 because roulettes are a thing. A lot of like content that is no longer current isn't really dead because they make it worthwhile to go back and do. So that's one thing you don't have to worry about.
Anyhow,
Yeah, it's completely off topic, but yeah, like, I feel like Sword Shield this gen could be amazing. And even as is right now, granted, it's still from a fresh playthrough. I loved XY when I played it, and I loved Sword Shield when I played it. But right now, I'd actually probably put it in, you know, probably 4th on my favorite gen list so far. Because nothing will beat Gen 4. If we include remakes, Gen 4 is just literal perfection. And then Gen 5 and Gen 2 are like kind of flip-floppy between like 2nd and 3rd, because Gen 5 had the best plot and Gen 2 was just really, really good. And there's a lot of nostalgia with that. But
What in the heck am I looking at? I'm playing at the moment, by the way, and I just ran into a... I don't know what I ran into. It is a very, it's a... I'm dying.
rip.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll
like,
get back to you when I know what it is.
no worries. Sword Shield did a lot right for how troubled its release was. I don't play competitive, so I don't know as much about that. But like a lot of the quality of life stuff that people complain makes the game too easy is like, you want to grind, go right ahead, be my guest, and that's coming from someone who loves grinding. But don't make it mandatory to be the grind, because that's not necessarily skill at that point. Like, yeah, you spent hundreds of hours and thousands of eggs breeding the perfect Pokemon for your team, and now you're mad because people don't have to spend that long on it. That isn't skill. That's just luck and time. It's a grind. It's not even a skill grind. It's just a thing you did.
Speaking of that, I was actually talking to my roommate about this when I found out about the Pokejobs and the feathers and all that. It's like, so do the perfect IVs not really mean all that much anymore if I can just raise the base stats of Pokemon with these items or with these classes?
Well, yeah, EVs and IVs are two different things. You can hyper train IVs. I count it more as quality of life, because you shouldn't be beholden to luck or just pure grind in order to actually play the game and say you're skilled. It isn't skill to breed 7,000 eggs to get the perfect team. That's not skill. That's a grind. It's time. It doesn't take skill to do that. It takes a little bit of knowledge, which is easy enough to look up, but there's no skill involved.
My perfect team is a group of shiny Wooloos anyway, so
that's the real meta, honestly. I have a shiny Gigantamax Corviknight, which I showed on stream last night. I think it was last night. I have a shiny Gigantamax Corviknight, and that's what I used my Master Ball on with no regrets, because box legendaries have historically had a higher catch rate than a traditional legendary. And the other legendary, Eternatus, you just get, you know.
yeah. That when I was fighting this, I was thinking to myself, this is a raid battle, so do I get a chance to catch no matter what? And yeah, that turned out to be the case.
I think I think you just catch it no matter what. I could be wrong, but I haven't heard of anyone failing it, so.
I did catch it with a Pokeball, so it's a very good chance that you're right.
Yeah, I caught mine in a normal Pokeball too, just for aesthetic. I caught my Zacian in a Dusk Ball, because I used my Master Ball on shiny Gigantamax Corviknight.
Understandably.
I wasn't letting it get away. I had friends take me into 2 Corviknight raids before that, Gigantamax Corviknights, and I couldn't catch it. One in a repeat ball broke out in one shake. One in an Ultra Ball broke out on one shake. So when I just joined a random pub Corviknight, hoping to just have a shot at a Gigantamax Corviknight, because I love Corviknights, it's tied with Starly for Route 1 bird at this point. Like, I have a chance at a shiny one, and I haven't used my Master Ball yet, and I know box legendaries have not been difficult to catch for about 2 gens now. You bet I'm not going to let it get away.
Now, personally, I started in Gen 3, didn't know that shinies were a thing until people were talking about them in like black and white, and how, because they were like, oh, let's go shiny hunting, and I didn't even know about that. To this day, I have not even seen a shiny Pokemon in my own playthroughs.
I think I've seen 2 natural ones at most, and I haven't actually hunted for any shinies, so one was a Sandshrew, one was like a Zubat or Golbat. Of course, it'd be a Zubat.
I've never hunted for shinies myself. This might be the first gen where I start. I just, it's not like they're cool, but a lot of them kind of aren't like all that good looking. Some of them are cool, and it's like a lot of prestige of, wow, I got the thing that looks different, and it's like a 1 in 4,000 chance. Unless it's the older games, then it's a 1 in 8,000 chance or something. And, you know, cool, but, you know, not something I desperately need. Not something I want to, like, go out of my way to dedicate time for.
Yeah, it's like catching all 28 unknowns.
Mm-hmm. The two shiny not legendaries, but the two shinies I have that I'm like super proud of were both accidents. One is the Corviknight, and the other was a shiny Vulpix in Soul Silver that did not use Roar, and it knew Roar because I checked afterwards, and it was like I was just trying to catch a Vulpix, and then I see a shiny, and it would not stay in a ball for 12 turns, and you want to know what anxiety feels like?
Okay, I've got I believe it's pronounced Gothitella. That's the thing that I ran into. All I saw was something that looked like I was walking behind a stack of Oreos.
Gothitell's pretty cool. It's a fun psychic type. I enjoy it.
Like, I think this is just like me having a bad impression of it from Gen 5, and I was like, I saw it, and I'm just like, is this supposed to be a replacement for Gardevoir?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Gardevoir was my favorite at the time, so.
Funnily enough, there was a Gardevoir right next to it.
Nice. Yeah, overall, I like this gen a lot. It has flaws. I would have liked a stronger plot. Not necessarily like anything Final Fantasy tier or anything. Nothing like super groundbreaking. I'm not looking for like the Citizen Kane of Pokemon. I personally don't think we'll ever see anything that tops Gen 5 in terms of raw plot. And I'm okay with that, but I would like them to at least kind of get in the ballpark. You know what I mean? I'd like them to try. I'd like to not have 11th hour all of the entire plot and then forget it happened. Like, I'd like some stuff to have consequences. I'd like to see more character development. Of course, we got the character development side of it. But like, I'd like to see, you know, the plot matter here a little bit more than just it didn't. And more than just, okay, you're near the end of the game, go do the entire plot right now in 5 minutes. Okay, it's done. I would eventually, maybe not this gen, but like next gen or down the line, would like to see a return to the national dex. But I don't mind having a break of it, because like being able to complete the Pokedex realistically without having done every event legendary ever from every other previous game was nice.
I completely forgot those were a thing.
Yeah, like, do we really want to repeat like Meloetta and Hoopa and all those other? Do we really want to do that? Do we really want to limit completing the Pokedex to people who just happen to have played the games on release and could do the events when they happened? Like, do we really want to do that? Because people aren't completing the Pokedex that are just getting into this anyway, if you have the National Dex. Like, I would like to see it return. I would like to see the entirety of the series be a thing, but it's like... There's like, what, 900 Pokemon now or something like that? There's a ridiculous amount of Pokemon. And with every gen, they add, like, in the neighborhood of 100 more, give or take, depending on the gen. Like, do we really want to, like, just keep that side of it forever?
Another reason I think they probably went without the national dex in this one is because the more they add, if they're gonna start doing these alternate forms of different Pokemon, you're gonna get to a point where the ratio is so small if you have everything there. It's like you have 900, but only like a fraction of a percent ends up having these specialized forms.
And then don't even get me started on like mega evolutions and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
Because they're already moving away from, at this point, since there's no like mega evolution band or anything, which they could probably work in some way to do with the challenger band, but they don't seem to want to do that since there's no like mega stones or.
Mm-hmm. I'm honestly okay with megas not necessarily being a thing. Maybe in their own like specialized area in future games. But yeah.
Yeah, they're like the Dynamax of a certain region. In this region only, you can you have the ability to do a Mega Evolution.
Yeah.
Oh,
Dynamaxing
God.
was a really good answer to the power creep because literally any Pokemon ever can Dynamax.
Yeah, I
And
was
I thought that
afraid
was
that when
good.
I started it, it would be like, okay, these like 17 Pokemon can Dynamax.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Kind of like Megas. But no,
Yeah.
literally any. It's only certain Pokemon have a special Gigantamax form, but literally anything can do the 3-turn boost. And I thought, like, if you have to have a Limit Break style system in your Pokemon game, I feel like Dynamaxing has been the best answer to that.
I just want to throw this out there. I did try to beat a gym with a Dynamax Shedinja.
Nice.
It did not work out because the gym I forgot what gym I was in, but they just happened to know a ghost move,
Mm-hmm.
which was super effective.
Yep.
I feel like pretty much all of them have an answer to Shedinja at this point.
Yeah,
I did use Ninjask for a while, and I never had before. It was actually pretty nice. It was my dedicated catcher for a while because it just knew False Swipe out of the box.
Yeah, same with mine. I actually bought False Swipe as soon as I found it because I knew that I would need it if I wanted to have a dedicated catching Pokemon. And for the longest time, I still don't know if I have anything in my party or in my boxes that can learn it.
Dreadnought can.
I don't. I guess I need to catch a Dreadnought then. I don't think.
Or
I have
evolve
one.
your discount
Yeah, I
Squirtle.
have a Choodle.
Yeah.
But once I caught that, I was like, oh well, this works out.
I ended up using an entire team of specifically Gen 8 besides Linoon and Surfetched, but even though those are basically Gen 8 exclusive.
I counted that because they're Gen 8 forms,
Yeah.
close enough.
I do
Doesn't
like my
have their power
Surfetched.
Why?
Original evolution.
I can understand why Farfetch'd can't learn False Swipe. Why Surfetch'd can't is a little annoying.
Yeah.
I would like very much if Surfetch'd. Now, Farfetch'd being able to learn False Swipe would be dumb. You get a leak on it, you max out its affinity, and you spam False Swipe, and bam, it's evolved. There's no challenge to it.
Yeah, I have the problem with my Surfetch'd where if it's in the front of my party, I'm trying to catch something and I attack, there's a very good chance it dies
Mm-hmm.
because it crits no matter what.
Like,
If you have the leak on.
yeah, I used my starter, and aside Ninjask for catching, I pretty much stuck to Gen 8, although I did swap here and there, like when I needed a good grass Pokemon and couldn't find one, I used like a Blossom. Like my team changed a lot, more than any other gen. I basically changed my entire team every gen, which was also fun. Like with the EXP share and the mini candies, being able to play with different mons is the first gen in a long time where that was like actually an option.
That actually reminds me that being able to just switch whenever you felt like it instead of having to go into a Pokemon Center and then prepare for the route you're about ready to travel was very, very nice. I also didn't realize until the very last battle that when I was fighting the rematches or in the semifinals that I was allowed to swap in the middle of those.
Which is why they're like the not Elite Four, because technically you're
Yeah.
not fighting them all at once. You get to switch out, you're fully healed between.
Yeah, you're filled to heal between, so it's like
I kind of like. I feel like maybe that was a bit overkill on making it easier. I kind of miss the. I like the twist on it. You're still fighting for before the champion, but they're not called the Elite Four. It's just a tournament. But like, I don't know. I would have liked it to have still been the Elite Four in the sense that, you're fighting them all at once. In a real
Yeah.
tournament, that makes sense because you rest between matches in a real tournament. But like,
it's like a tournament. It's not a gauntlet this time around. But I did like the change. Now this could have been in previous generations, but to me, going through and being the person who actually defeats the champion first, instead of like, oh, your rival came, defeated the champion, now you fight your rival past the champion to be the champion.
Well, that was pretty much a Gen 1 thing. Gen 2, the champion was Lance. Gen 3, it was... I don't remember. Steven, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I'm remembering wrong, because I remember Gen 3...
Because the champion wasn't the 4th in the Elite Four. The first champion was Blue, your rival in Gen 1, and that started the tradition of the Elite Four plus champion.
Yeah, I think I'm remembering wrong. I'm remembering the champion of Gen 3 as my rival, because I did get to that fight, and then all I remember is being rock-tombed to death by his 3 fossil Pokemon.
Oh yeah, Steven wasn't really a rival though, was he?
No, he wasn't. He was the champion. I was thinking him as my rival for some reason.
Right.
He was like a pseudo guide.
Yeah.
No, Gen 7 or Sun and the Moon. It was basically the opposite of Gen 1.
Yep.
You became the champion, and then everyone else had to fight you.
Yeah, you're the jerk-ass person who became the champion, and your quote-unquote champion fight was actually against your first challenger, because you were the first champion, ever. Because the Elite Four was like a new thing they invented literally just to challenge you. At that point, to kind of become official Pokemon League stuff, they kind of invented it. And then you were the first to go through it, and you were the first to win, and then you were the first champion. So after beating the Elite Four in Sun Moon, it's the coolest thing Sun Moon did. Well, it did a lot of cool things, but this was one of the coolest things, like, on a first playthrough. Is beating the Elite Four, getting to that last room, finding an empty throne and sitting in it, and someone coming up to challenge you was really cool. You were the first champion not because you beat the existing champion. You were the champion because you were the first to, like, be there.
Yep.
And that was cool. That was one thing I really, even in retrospect, really like and respect about Sun Moon. Like, that first time you beat the Elite Four and find the empty champion throne, and you're just sitting in it waiting for a challenger, was just... That gave me chills. I liked that.
At some point, I feel like they have to take everything that was the best or the most well-received from the previous games, and then put that all into just one game.
The thing is, that would take so much dev time, and Pokemon is kind of a machine at this point. Because, like...
And that's the problem.
Like, Game Freak is on a yearly release schedule. Not every gen comes out every year, but, like, you have to have a pretty decently major game every year, which takes, you know, a lot of dev time and dev power, and it's kind of crunchy. And then the gens have to release at specific times to coincide with a new anime coming out, new merch, trading cards, this and that. And it's like, if the mainline games could break out of that for a while until the rest of the franchise, and I know money is important and, you know, people like money, but I feel like it would be better for the series. You know, it's gonna sound cruel. It almost would have been better for the series if Sun and Moon had been the flop that everybody was so sure it was going to be. Because then we could have, like, Nintendo could have called for a hard reboot. Which I don't think the series desperately needs, but would be really nice if it got one before the quality of games got that bad. You know what I mean? Like,
it was the Pokemon Let's Go, but that was not really a reboot more than just showing off the Switch's power for Pokemon games.
part of me regrets sleeping on that a little bit, but also at this point, it's mostly, I don't want to, like, it's a cool game. I don't know that I want to spend $60 on Let's Go, but from what I've seen of it, it looks like something I would probably love.
For me, it kind of was a price point because it's Gen 1 again.
Yeah.
And like the graphics and all that kind of stuff, that of course is going to take a lot of time. And of course, all the extra stuff like the mechanics of catching shinies and
Mm-hmm. Yep.
the controls.
Yeah.
Which I think is forced that you have to like basically toss the
Yeah, you almost have to Pokemon Go it.
yeah.
I only know of what I've seen. I know it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Which ultimately is how I feel about Sword Shield, but the bar was set really low there because the fan base was just like, screaming at the top of their lungs how doomed the series was and how awful things were going to be. And we should all boycott because this game is just bad out of the box because of something I read in a mistranslated interview. And then the game comes out and sells more than, like, any other Pokemon game ever, and is outsold, well, not outsold Ultimate, but is, like, on pace to or something like that. It's sold a lot. It has set records. It's like, how's that boycott working out for you? Pretty good? Like, I understand being disappointed in some things.
Yeah,
Sword Shield is
like-
far from perfect.
Like if I ever meet somebody who's just like, why do you enjoy Sword Shield? It's a terrible thing. It's like it did all this, and like, you can think that, but it got me to buy it after not playing a Pokemon game for I don't know how many years.
Mm-hmm. 4
They did
gens,
something right.
like, yeah, the last time you played Pokemon, it was on the original DS. Not even the 3DS.
Yeah.
It was, and it wasn't even the last game on the normal DS. Black White and Black White 2 were both came after that. Were also on the original non-3D, just normal DS.
Yeah, I didn't even try the remakes on the DS for Heart Gold or Soul Silver.
Those are
Didn't
so
even try
good.
those.
They're so good. They're I don't know which I like more between Platinum or Hard Gold, Soul Silver. They're both really good. And then it's a side game, but Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky specifically.
I did play a Mystery Dungeon game, but I can't remember. I think it was for the DS. I want to say it was Aqua something.
Oh, wait, Red Rescue Team, Blue Rescue Team?
Yeah, that. Yeah,
That was the first one. That one was really good too. But Explorers of Sky is like the best in that entire line. It's such a good game. I love that. It's completely a side game, but like I kind of count that as Gen 4 because it was also really good and borderline perfect.
And then you had that random Pokemon DS game where you had to match 4.
Oh yeah.
Forgot what it was
Oh,
called.
that one. I've actually played that one.
I haven't. I know of its existence though.
I've played it. I've lost the cartridge to it at some point in my... But it was a very weird game, to say the least.
It's like Truzzle or something.
Something like that.
Something like that.
But like for all the absolute loud screaming bemoaning of this being the end of Pokemon and the worst thing to ever exist ever since unsliced bread or whatever, I actually enjoyed the games a lot. So someone to come up to me like, why do you enjoy this? It was bad. It's like, no, it was fun actually. It was a video game and it did a good job of being a video game and I enjoyed it and I had fun.
And I remember when they were first like doing the teasers of all that. It's like, here's like the world, here's like the characters. People are like, this looks amazing.
Mm-hmm. The first trailer for Sword Shield, I was already mad at the fandom because they were like, oh, Let's Go. When Let's Go first came out, I was like, oh, this is the direction of Pokemon forever. Pokemon is ruined because this game exists. They're gonna make every game like Pokemon Go. And it's like, the first trailer for that shut all of that crowd up. So I was already kind of miffed at the fan base. Like, see, no, mainline Pokemon games are still mainline Pokemon games. Shut the hell up.
And look, there's a ton of like really small features in this that really are nice too. Like when I was playing for the first hour or two, I was sitting next to my friend who was going through. He was up with the first gym, so I'm just trying to like catch up, just kind of get back into it all. And he looks over and he says, "Have you twirled yet? Have I what?" It's like spin the joystick and do that. It's like, this is the best thing ever.
That
And I
technically
clicked
existed in Sun Moon as well. You didn't do the cool dab at the end though.
Yeah,
You did have the twirl though.
I did that more often than I really had any reason to.
Same, like in front of every NPC and every wild Pokemon that didn't attack me.
Yeah, just twirling in the grass.
Because sometimes even if you whistle, a Pokemon will run up to you, but just like stare at you instead of attacking you. So like, you can just like twirl in front of them. Sometimes they react, sometimes they get bored and walk off, but like sometimes they'll just sit there and stare at you. It's like, the world feels more alive
Just a
than...
little bit.
Because like there's a lot of little touches that just kind of add to the game as a whole.
And I really like that I can walk through a cave without having a Zubat fight every 5 steps.
Oh yeah, for real. I'm kind of sad Zubat's not in Sword Shield. I just realized.
We do have Woobat, which I named not Zubat.
I mean, we've had Woobat for a while. I think that was the Gen 5 Zubat.
Yeah.
Because Gen 5 did something kind of similar. When you were going through the main game in Black and White, you could only catch new Gen 5 Pokemon. And as such, Gen 5 added, I think, the most out of any gen outside of Gen 1. But, like, you could only find stuff until post-game, and then you got the National Dex, and then you could catch stuff from Gens 1 through 4. I really liked that, and I assumed that was the direction that was going to happen when they were announcing the Dex cuts and stuff. But, you know, it is what it is. There are some Pokemon I miss. I want Garchomp back because, you know, that's probably the closest I have to a favorite Pokemon is Garchomp. But I just, you know, it didn't bother me because I never caught them all anyway. And then you get into the complicated territory of previous games event legendaries that ran once, and if you didn't get, well, screw you, I guess. You'll never have a complete Pokedex unless you have a friend that did that and can trade back, or go on the GTS and dupe someone out of a hacked one or something.
6 IV Snorunt.
Nice.
In addition to that, it's like, would you really want all of them anyway? From just collecting, like, that's one thing, but to actually go out, it's a lot of them are just gonna sit around and not do anything. Like I mentioned Sporink earlier. Sporink was, I'm pretty sure, a normal type. You're not really gonna have a use for that.
Oh, Psychic?
Oh,
If
was
I
it
remember
psychic?
right. And now it evolves into a
But-
psychic type at the very least.
But going on to that, there are some that you just can't really get much use out of. They're just kind of there. And I think some of the ones that they did bring over, like the one I remember from, this may not be from Gen 3, but the one I remember seeing in Gen 3 is the I can't remember, the Magma Turtle. I think it's a,
Oh, Torkoal?
yeah, that.
I'm
So-
pretty sure that was Gen 3.
Okay. And then Electrike. They're enough to make me remember things from Gen 3 without having to see all of Gen 3.
Personally, I don't like seeing all of Gen 3 anyway, but that's just me.
Yeah.
That's a heretic's opinion. I know people are going to, like, completely bash this entire video because I, as the host of this channel, do not like Gen 3 of Pokemon, therefore my opinion on Pokemon everything is invalid forever. Because I dare to speak out against the pinnacle of the series. And it's like, I don't like Gen 3. I liked Oros. I like the remakes of Gen 3 a lot.
Now, I didn't like having to go through the forest and determine if the cocoon I was looking at was slightly purple or not.
Yeah.
That was annoying.
Honestly, I'd say Gen 4 is close to the pinnacle because you have the types, the attacks split from physical and special. That's like everything you need in the Pokemon game.
That needed to happen way sooner. Like, I'm surprised it took that long
Yeah.
for the physical special split.
I completely forgot that I hadn't played in so long, I forgot that there was, they had to split that.
Yeah, because originally, whatever type the move was would determine whether it was calculated off of attack or special attack. And in Gen 1, special, because special attack and defense were the same thing, so the Kadabra line was insanely overpowered.
Which also meant Flareon was actually weak for 1 through 3 because all of its fire type abilities would be special, and its main stat is attack.
And Spoink and Grumpig, which it evolves into, are both psychic types.
Ah, okay.
I just looked it up because, yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, like, I would like to see it. Like, I understand from a collector's some people are, you know, completionists. They want to do the everything, even if it means 900 Pokemon are sitting in boxes or, like, having been traded away and stuff. And that's whatever. That's just the nature of the series. You think about the dark aspects of the series and gives you a headache and makes you depressed. But, like, some people are completionists, and I understand that. And being, like, I don't fault anybody for being disappointed in the controversial changes for Sword Shield. Like saying, okay, this is probably not for me, or I don't like that they did this. That's fine. That's a normal reaction, being disappointed in something. Like, you know, cool. But to go to the extreme that a lot of people went to, like, I will never, ever in my life say it is justifiable to any degree to send death threats to a game dev because they did a decision you didn't like. That's never okay. And it was not isolated incidents either. Like, it was... And after the Kill Annie thing, like, now all of a sudden this is serious business. People are actually legitimately, like, able to and pulling off these stupid threats. Now it's a lot more serious. And it's like, this is over a video game. Don't buy the video game. Save the $60. Go out to, like, a really good dinner or 3 really cheap dinners or something. Or buy a different video game. Like, hello? It's not that complex. You don't like something, don't buy it. And, yeah, the boycott thing didn't work, but, you know... It's one thing to be disappointed. It's another to, like, actually go off the deep end, and it was extremely common. For ultimately a series of games that was, you know, pretty decent, actually. Sword and Shield were pretty good. Best of all time? God, no. But flawed, but good, and probably a step in the right direction for the series. I really hope they take what Sword and Shield has done right and improve on it and, you know, fix the things that were not done right. Nitpicks and legitimate flaws and criticisms and all that. But, like... You know, I hope they improve on it. I always want things to be improved upon. But if I don't like something... If Final Fantasy 16 goes 13, full 13 of just not a good video game, or not a good Final Fantasy, I'll just, like, you know, I'll be disappointed, but I'm not gonna, like, you know, try and do something extreme to Square Enix over it. It's just, like, oh, the game series I love did something I didn't like, and this game was subpar. Oh well, I'll save $60, or I'll probably buy it but just be sad or something like that, you know? It's okay to not like things. Go on.
At that point for Square Enix, it's gonna be game over for Final Fantasy at that rate, except for 14.
I agree. I loved 15, but God, do I not like that it's to my standard, admittedly incomplete. And losing the trust for that stuff. That's a whole nother around the campfire that I want to do at some point. I think I did on stream a long time ago, but, like, would love to do again. Like...
It was a little bit that you did.
Mm-hmm. I just... If a game series... Like, if they were to announce Final Fantasy 16 and announce that, like, they were eliminating a lot of the combat in favor of, like... Or, like, they were, like, it was job system, but there was only, like, 4 jobs or something. 4 or 5 jobs or something. Or they introduced, like, a bunch of flat characters or something. Like, if I were to... I don't really know how to draw a proper analogy between the dex cuts and what Final Fantasy could do. But if I got to that level of disappointment, and Final Fantasy is my favorite game series of all time, if it were to do that, I wouldn't pop off with angry letters to the devs and wish horrible things.
I honestly don't think you could really get much of a bigger change than what they did with 15, because if you think about it, they went from a turn-based system, and aside from the MMOs, it was always turn-based, and then with 15, it's like, we're an action RPG, more or less.
Mm-hmm. Well, 12 kind of went away from turn-based. It like 12 played like an offline MMO essentially, and it was real time, but you still had to like input commands and stuff. But it wasn't really turn based. It was kind of like this weird half and half, I guess.
Oh, kind of like how I guess you could go with that with 13. You already had it was real time. Things kept going, and then.
Well, 13 was ATB.
Okay,
like
yeah.
which that started with 4. So technically, Final Fantasy hasn't been a turn-based RPG since the 90s.
Oh, well then, okay.
But,
Good point.
I don't know, I was really excited. Like, it's kind of hard to draw that analogy to me, but if Final Fantasy were to do something to the degree of the dex cuts that bothered me, I wouldn't send an angry letter to the devs. I wouldn't make stupid threats on the internet, especially behind anonymity. That's just really stupid. I wouldn't go that level. It's still my favorite game series of all time, but if it did something that level of making me disappointed as a fan, I would just save the $60 and be sad and complain about it on the internet, but I wouldn't actually like blame devs or go off. I would express my disappointment, but as disappointment, not the sky is falling. My game series is dead forever because the devs are horrible people and whatnot. Like I wouldn't do that.
I think the best analogy I can think of is if they decided to make Final Fantasy 16, but it was in the style of like a Dissidia Final Fantasy.
I'd be cool with that, actually. I'd be like, see, it's kind of hard to disappoint me as a Final Fantasy fan because I've played like most of the major spin-offs and all the different styles, and I love all of them. it's kind of hard for me. Like, it's like, okay, we're making Final Fantasy 16 a first-person shooter, I guess.
I could see that working out though.
I could see it working out. I would play a Final Fantasy FPS.
So, just imagine, for my analogy, it'd be you play as an NPC that has no character. There's maybe like 2 other characters that manage like a shop, and that's part of the main line. Not like a spin-off. That's just a main line for Final Fantasy.
Oh, okay. I see where you're going. This actually happened with one of the series I was playing. I was waiting for not the most recent, but the second most recent Atelier game to come out, and I was expecting it to be an item-based RPG like all the other ones. And I was expecting it to be really good because it was the 25th anniversary. I think it was the 25th. It might have been the 20th. And it was supposed to like have all the main characters from all the previous series. So I was thinking, oh, this might finally be something that combines them all into one unified universe, which is something I've been kind of hoping to see for a while. But no, it was a town management game. Just like, what is this?
It could be a bit extreme with my analogy though, because like that's actually kind of worse to a degree that you just have less characters, you just have less things to really do. Because in Sword and Shield, as you said before, is basically you could combine the post game and the primary, and that'd basically be the entire game.
Because the post game felt like a rehash of the main plot, like, oh, Dynamax Pokemon going rogue, only you actually get to fight them this time because you're the champion, and I guess that's how, Galar politics works. And it's like, okay, cool. It's like the stuff that happened, only a lot shorter, and you actually get to participate, kind of. And it's the same thing. The villains give up after defeat, and it's like, okay, we're gonna go to jail quietly now, and we're happy about it. And it's like, no. That's a horrible resolution.
But I guess, if you know Dragon Quest IV, I don't know if you're dodging stuff on that.
Not particularly. I started playing it, but like, it got pretty grindy for me to like worry about right now.
Okay. So there's a point where you play as this merchant, and he doesn't have any combat ability besides like inspecting equipment. So you can determine their worth, and essentially you get plot a little bit just to go around, go into like this dungeon with like a couple other guys to help get through that dungeon so you don't get destroyed by random enemies. And otherwise you go back and sell that equipment you find. That's what I'm kind of more imagining. Like, you do have a plot, and the characters, they're characters, and it's kind of about it.
Well, like, I could probably still, like, if it were done right, I would enjoy that. Like, that sounds like Final Fantasy Recketeer at that point.
That sounds like the character I would have played if in that RPG session we had forever ago.
Oh,
just
yeah.
Walking around, it's like, I value your equipment at 100.
Antiques Roadshow, but an RPG.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh my god, I actually kind of want to play that now.
The point that I'm trying to get at is, like, imagine that as a main line, and it's just, like, in Final Fantasy, you're excited to be the hero, you want to be able to take down like the big bad and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you want to like
you don't want to be like the merchant.
Yeah, you're just the side character the whole time.
Not involved that much in plot, but you can hear about the plot.
Well, I mean, we have 2 MMOs in the main series at this point, so like I would have to see how it would come about, but I would probably on release or like, pre-release, I would probably feel that disappointment. But again, there is literally nothing on the planet that any game company could do that would make me justify that level of personal attack on the devs to that degree. There's nothing on the planet that could make me do that ever. Because I would just walk away from a company, including Square Enix and main series Final Fantasy, long before I ever got that level of angry. And I don't think there's anything anybody on the planet, let alone a game company, could do to make me that angry in the first place that I wouldn't just walk away first.
It's mostly just people don't really let go of certain things and that they need to let go of.
I don't understand that reaction of, like, I understand being disappointed and being angry at a series taking a direction that you didn't want it to take. I get it. But, like, walk away, you know? Like you want the perfect Pokemon game, that's fine. And I can't just say, okay, we'll go make a fan game because Nintendo will just break it, but, like...
But nothing is stopping people from making their own inspired game.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to some of the more quality of life things that people might not have liked with this, you didn't have any of the HMs, which I think has been a thing, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, that's been a thing since
then,
TMs were permanent.
Yeah, and now you don't, and everything was like in easy to find places. You didn't have to find, like, you didn't have to find the move deleter, the move tutor, right there, everywhere you go.
The move relearner not requiring heart scales is one of the best things to ever come out of this series, and I've said that a lot tonight. But like, and I've said that a lot over, you know, about Sun Moon in general, or not Sun Moon, Sword Shield in general. Like, I really, really, really like certain things. The move relearner not costing heart scales. I no longer have to go make Alola Mola's extinct in order to like remember moves off of something I caught high level or something I traded or something I evolved. Like, I can just actually just go to a Pokemon Center. Okay, I caught this level 56 thing. Alright, cool. I can just see what moves it knew instead of, like, grinding out a bunch of... Like, they removed a lot of the grind. And this is coming from someone who enjoys grinding in RPGs. I am really grateful for a lot of the removal of grind. The mini candies are just fantastic for that. Like, I got to actually build teams instead of just having my dedicated 6 for the entire game and that's it, and I catch stuff for filler. I actually played around with different teams. I never got rid of my starter, of course, because, you know, I'm one of those my starter is sacred kind of thing. My starter never leaves my party. But
I used to be like that, but this one I threw that out the window because I was just like, I kind of want to, you know, break away from having my starter in my party at all times because I didn't want to end up in that position I was before, where I had one strong starter and everything else was weak.
mm-hmm.
But that kind of didn't really happen anyway because of the XP share.
Mm-hmm.
But after a while, I just thought, well, I got everything set up how I want it. I don't really see a need to go back. Plus, I have the edgiest Pokemon I've ever had sitting in the box.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Like with this one, I got to play around. Like, okay, cool. This is the gym coming up. Let's see how many types I have to counter it, and let's build a team around it. Which, of course, is a little cheesy, but at the same time, like, okay, cool.
I feel like that's
you know,
how it was meant to be played.
I have played with more Pokemon, like, actually used outside of just for funsies and for friend battles and randomness than I have ever used in the series ever. Just because, like, okay, this Pokemon's like 10 levels behind. Okay, I'll just throw like a few candies at it and catch it up. Like, okay, cool. Like, now I can actually use this Pokemon and it's fun. Like, I kind of had more raw fun with this game than I have in a while.
I feel like the main reason it's so much of a godsend is because grinding in Pokemon, like, it's just not fun.
No.
It's a very unique kind of grind. Like, with all the other RPGs, you get that XP, maybe not as a one-to-one, but you'll get like half for people who aren't in the party.
Mm-hmm.
But with Pokemon, it was always, they're used in battle, they get XP. Otherwise, no. You can get a little bit with XP share by swapping them in and out. But other than that, if they're not used in battle, you don't get anything.
Mm-hmm. So that led to, like, bait and switch leveling, which was I mean, I guess it was more difficult in the sense that you had to sack a turn, but it got, like, really tedious. Like,
Yeah,
every
the
battle. Like,
tedious
there's like
parts
12
of it.
trainers on this route. Okay, time to switch. Time to switch back. Time to go back to the Pokemon Center every 10 seconds because, like, you know, my Pokemon's getting hit a lot because it's not first.
And that's another thing. You don't have to go back to the Pokemon centers if something bad happens. Oh, I've messed up, and now the person who is leading my team at the moment is down. I just pop up a camp and cook, and you're good to go.
The camp is fun. I think that's the best quality of life. Actually stop playing the fighting part of the RPG and just kind of sit down with your team and hang out, which they've tried to do since XY. I think this is kind of the most successful variant of that. The cooking minigame is fun. Playing around with the Pokemon, with toys and stuff is fun. Like, there's just a lot more quality of life, fun stuff to do that's not the battling. I didn't like the contest at all.
And you
I
even
never
get
did.
XP from camping too.
Yep.
I'll say, it's a lot more. It feels better to just do it with the camping instead of the way they had it with X and Y and Sun and Moon, because it's like it almost feels just not fitting. Like, yeah, it's nice that you can just play with your Pokemon. It's just, why does it have to be like all this one little screen and all put away? Like, it just feels a bit weird to me when done in Sun and Moon and X and Y. But with camping, it feels a lot more natural.
Yeah, it felt more natural, felt more organic. In XY Sun Moon, it's like, okay, cool. After a battle, I get to, you know, use a brush and get rid of my Pokemon status condition, which is cool, I guess. But it felt kind of like, you know, items were pointless in XY and Sun Moon, and like this is like, nah, we're just hanging out, we're chilling. It could not give me EXP and not necessarily heal unless you did like a really stellar job on the curry. I'd still enjoy it because it's like it felt more like organic and natural to just hang out.
They give you more of an incentive to look into the curry recipes too.
You get more toys to play with your Pokemon if you talk to a guy in the wild area.
Yeah, and I think I've gotten maybe most of them. I've gotten 40 different. I talked to him just a few minutes ago when I got 40, and I thought I'd get another one, but he didn't give me one for 40.
But like, yeah, like it feels more organic and natural to hang out at camp than to take one Pokemon one at a time and drag a food item. Like it feels less like Neopets now. It actually feels like I'm hanging out with my team, which is something I kind of really wish more RPGs did. Just casual RPG time. It's one thing I liked in Bravely. Just the random conversations you could have. And Dragon Quest does that to an extent. And it's just something I wish more RPGs did, like actually just kind of casually sit down with the squad and hang out and talk outside of this let's save the world business. Let's take a few minutes and just chill. Something I liked in 15, kind of, to an extent that they did. Like, you know, when you would actually sleep and accrue your EXP, you would have conversations and look at the pictures Prompto took. That felt really nice. The camaraderie is something that I wish more RPGs had, and Pokemon Sword Shield did a pretty good job of it, I feel like.
It's kind of like going back to the character building thing, because you're not just experiencing the character building through the story, but also through your own interactions now. Instead of like, it used to be, here's the story, you know, the characters build up, but now you're kind of getting to see more of the actions that you decide, how you decide to play, builds the character up in your own mind, and that could also be different between different people.
And yeah, like you're playing the same silent protagonist with different skins that you've always played, but like the dialogue options and how you actually interact kind of really tells a good amount of the story of the character. You know, like the character is you, and how you interact, it feels a lot more genuine. And I love the silent protagonist trope to begin with. To see personality come out of a silent protagonist, no other game has done it as well, in my opinion, as FF14. But
Snark.
it's really it's very cookie cutter in like the beginning, but as time goes on with expansions, your character has a personality, and you get to decide how much of an asshole they are, and it's fantastic. Sword Shield kind of starting to go that direction a little bit, and you know, I really I wish the series would do more of that. Like, not necessarily give me a defined character, but let me, you know, give us more ways to define our own character.
Yeah, and like you can, in the cutscenes, like the actual story cutscenes and all of that, it's kind of not there. But as you're, you can tell that the personality is there when you're just, if you stand around in a battle for a little bit, or you just stand around and you get like the idle animations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And while I'm thinking about it, I just want to throw this out there. I feel really bad for Bill, as he's no longer in control of the PCs. It's
I'm
all
pretty okay with
automated
that.
by Rotoms now.
Yeah, I was joking about that with a friend a while ago, that eventually one of the games is just going to be like you're taking on this conglomerate of Rotoms that have taken over the world or something. I'm surprised no one's made a
Even in
fan
my
game
bike.
about that yet. Yeah. Yeah, he's your
I need to
bike, he's
find
your
one.
PC, he's your Pokedex, he's your phone, he's your tablet.
A drone, even.
Mm-hmm.
I need
Yeah.
to find one. I have a magazine, but I don't actually have the Pokemon.
Go on, Silas?
No, I was just saying, he's your bike too.
Yeah.
Rodon.
Yeah, he's like everything. He's...
Which I feel is kind of weird, because I put him in the water, and he sparks.
Well, Rotom has a washing machine form.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I
That
don't know,
and-
putting a Sparks in the water just seems like a bad idea.
Yeah.
Oh, I can go downstairs.
As long as it's not attacking, it should be fine.
Yeah.
Electric Pokemon seem to be pretty well contained in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Like, obviously there's more I could want from Sword Shield. It is far from a perfect game. But I feel like it's a lot better than people made it out to be on, like, the pre-release info. Which leads me to another point. Nintendo really needs to let us actually have some mystery in these games. They really just
Yeah.
need to learn to, like, let us discover some things on our own. We don't need the entire Pokedex revealed to us in every little facet of every detail. Sun Moon did it the worst in that regard, but, like, let us have some mystery.
I came up to the top of this building for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well. But,
If I had to put my favorite thing about Sword and Shield, it'd probably just be the music. Like, it's my personally taste.
oh yeah.
I forgot to talk about the music. Yeah, the music in this gen, my personal opinion, is the best the Pokemon series has ever been, musically.
Now, as somebody who's missed a good portion of that, I have to say that this is the best that I've heard so far, especially the gym battle music.
Yeah.
I'd
like-
say, at the very least, listen to Sun Moon's music and Gen 5's.
Now I have heard a few snippets of Sun and Moons, and that was from. It wasn't like too much of it, but the little snippets that I've heard have been pretty good. I will say that.
Sun Moon had good music, especially everything involving Team Skull. And Gen 5 had good music too. And this is from someone who's played every gen. And aside, like, you know, it's not fair to say Gen 1 had bad music because it was, you know, Gen 1. Like, you know, Gen 1 didn't do something perfect is not necessarily fair because it was the first. Obviously, it didn't, you know, get in its stride yet. But, like, I've played every gen of Pokemon. Gen 8, easily my favorite music. Like, this is the best OST I think I've heard out of a Pokemon game, just overall start to finish. Gym leader music was really good. The Spike Myth Gym not being a Dynamax spot and not using the gym leader music, but just Piers having his own theme.
Oh yeah.
That blew
was
my
good.
freaking mind. After I beat Piers, I stayed up till like 4 a.m. listening to his theme on repeat because it's like, no, this is a normal gym leader. Like, but it sounds like Team Yell admin Piers or
Yeah.
Team Yell executive, but it's a gym leader. And it's like, that's when the narrative around Team Yell was, in my opinion, flawlessly done. And it's one of the reasons I say the character work in Sword Shields. I keep saying Sun Moon for some reason. But, like, the character work in Gen 8 is just so well done. But, like, I feel like it was strongest around Bede, but also around Piers and Team Yell. It's like, this is a dude who's the gym leader in a very worn-down, dilapidated, no-one-goes-to-this town. Got an offer to move his gym to another town because it had a spot and he could Dynamax. But he declined. He didn't say fuck off. He just politely declined because he loved his town. And his goal was to make his town, you know, to kind of restore it, to make it a better town. And when Marnie was going through the gym challenge, he secretly formed Team Yell out of his gym trainers to cheer her on and kind of low-key cause mischief to see if she could get an edge, you know, whatever. That's just fun little mischief. That's not evil. It's a little scummy, but, like, you know, people didn't have trouble overcoming it, you know? It was kind of, once they lost, it was like, okay, we lost, we give up, you know? We're not actually here to really hurt anything. We're here to cause mischief and to give our Marnie an edge. Okay, cool. You know, and anytime she told them to shut up, they listened. It was just, you know, I love them in that regard. But, like, Piers' theme musically is one of the most compelling tracks I've heard out of a Pokemon game. And that's including some stuff from Gen 5, Gen 4. Like, I haven't been this blown away by a Pokemon OST since Heart Gold, Soul Silver.
I think, back to Piers and, like, his whole motivation. Besides his hometown is why he kept his position there. I think a lot of it was his pride as well, because he didn't want to use Dynamax at all.
Yep.
And I actually kind of related to that, because I never actually used Dynamax through any of the plot at all.
I did, but I always, no matter what my team was going through at that second in time, when they Dynamaxed, I Dynamaxed. Just without exception.
Yeah, that's what I did, just because I had the opportunity. I might as well use it.
I used it in, like, the wild areas where it didn't really matter that much.
Right.
Which I do like the attacks. They're actually really well animated.
Oh, yeah. And it's cool as hell. It's like kaiju battles, kind of.
Yeah.
I do like using the psychic types and just reading the statement, the battlefield got weird.
Yeah. that one's really cool. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, Dynamaxing gives, and max raids in general kind of give the terrains a lot more usability, because I didn't use them at all when they were introduced. Like, this is cool and all, but this is like kind of a waste of a turn that my opponent can benefit from. But with like Dynamax moves, with max moves, it's like, okay, cool, I can do weather and an attack, or I can get the effects of this terrain and actually play with it. Like, it kind of made me play with more mechanics in the game that I otherwise ignored.
I liked how they had that included into a gym as well, where the weather effects were actually incorporated there, which in some, I'm sure in the past they did a little bit of it, but I feel like this was like crafted just around that.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I'd say that.
But Piers breaking the mold, first dark type gym leader, didn't use the gym leader theme, had his own theme, and then created Team Yell. Here's the other thing about Piers. Here's like another reason. Piers doesn't Dynamax. He almost beat Raihan anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, in the post-game, you talk to Raihan with Piers following you, and he admits that battle was really close in the semifinals. Piers beat his first opponent, and almost beat Raihan, who was also one of Leon's rivals, the unbeatable Leon. If he is Dynamax, he could very well have been champion.
It's all in his pride.
Mm-hmm. And also that the specific order in which you fight the gym leaders is based on their strength. For never Dynamaxing ever, he's still the second to last on the gym leader challenge. He's still 7 of 8. He's that good.
Made me think of was it Rock Lee in Naruto?
I admittedly have not actually watched Naruto, and like,
there's one guy that couldn't use any like special abilities besides his fists.
Ah, okay.
And he got crazy good with it. Anyway, that's basically the only knowledge I have for that.
like, I don't think there's a character in all of Pokemon I respect as much as Piers. Like, I love him a lot. He's my favorite gym leader ever, probably. I can't think of another gym leader I just absolutely just adore to that degree.
I can think of one that I absolutely despise to the same degree. and that'd be the, I don't remember the. It's been so long I don't remember the names of them. But the tag team gym, from Ruby and Sapphire.
Yeah, I remember not liking that. The one time I played Emeralds, I remember not liking that.
I had trouble with that a lot.
Which is weird because I kind of liked Raihan for that reason. Because it was a nice twist.
I think it was because they were a psychic type, Jim and Sapphire. In that, I'm pretty sure they were psychic. I know that their anchor Pokemon were a Solrock and
Lunatone.
the equivalent. Yeah.
Which is ironic because Solrock as an NPC ally in Max Raids is absolutely worthless.
I was trying to go through a raid battle last night, and I was fighting a Frostlass, and it just looked at the Solrock, and the Solrock just got destroyed.
And when
Well, I
Solrock
guess
isn't
one.
busy dying, it's busy buffing itself. That's going to be erased
Yeah.
by the Wave of Ice Dragon Quest thing that just erases all buffs anyway. So then it's going to waste even more turns trying to buff itself.
Same with Wobbuffet. Wobbuffet's trying to forget everything it knows, and then suddenly it doesn't matter anymore.
Wobbuffet has no attacking moves. Counter once in a Great Blue Moon hits. And Safeguard once in a Blue Moon situationally can, like, actually really come in handy. Otherwise, the Wobbuffet's useless. But actually, the Solrock annoys me more because it knows Psychic. It knows an attack move. And it sees that that shield is about to break in one hit. But it chooses to raise its speed and do nothing else. Like, I wish you could choose NPCs, or at the very least, like, you know, have them, like, have NPCs that respect the type of Pokemon that you're fighting, and, you know, use more attacking moves than just self-buff. I get they want variety, but it's like, make the variety worth something. Like, I have no problem with Eevee, Togepi, and Clefairy, because Clefairy's non-attacking move, Follow Me, guarantees that your Pokemon, which outclasses it in every way, you know, will live for at least a turn, and sometimes that's all it takes. The Eevee can double your damage for a turn, and it generally targets me. I don't know if I'm just lucky or what, but the Eevee usually helping hands me instead of the Solrock or the Wobbuffet. And, like, and the Clefairy can also heal, the Togepi can heal. It's like, I understand having things that are more than just hit things really, really hard, but make them useful, please. Don't have the Solrock buff itself. Like, if you're gonna have the raid Pokemon just debuff everything and just, like, it feels like a handicap sometimes. 5-star raids are virtually impossible solo.
Oh yeah, that's the problem I was having, because I'd get down to, because I'd go into them thinking, okay, I'm gonna be the one that does all the damage basically. But no, what happens is we get down to that second, oh, it's getting desperate, and then it starts doing 3 attacks, so it one-shots the Solrock, one-shots another thing that's weak, which usually ends up being a Sneasel or something like that.
Yeah.
And then the third one's just sitting there with 1 HP, and I'm sitting there thinking, your time is not long for this world. And then the next turn it's over because it dies, and then we get blown out of the den.
Yep. I love the wild area, and I would love to see that expanded. I really wish there had been a third area that was unlocked rather than everything is just now level 60. But that's something the Pokemon games have just kind of done over time. Like, oh, you're in post-game? Everything is terrible from Binding of Isaac now. Have fun.
Oh, and Linoons are running all over the place, and you can't avoid them because they're really fast.
I hate those things so much.
Sporadic. Something I was hoping for wild areas, though, is that I was hoping for it to interlink the towns.
Yeah.
Besides
that
just
would've been
Mudstook
nice.
and Hammerlock.
That would have been really cool if it were like this pseudo-world map.
Kinda
And then,
like how,
like, you have your normal routes, and have, like, the train is a pseudo-fast travel until you can fly, which is really, really early in this game, which is fine. and then have a wild area where like that's where all the out of wild grass non-random encounters are, and they're a lot stronger, but like risk reward kind of thing.
I would have liked it if it was more like Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, or even Breath of the Wild, in terms of open-ended.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it feels like oh, I just ran into something. It feels like they took the concept of the safari area and just made it the game. And if I think they did that, but you know, instead of having the safari area mechanics of you can only use bait, rock, and a Pokeball, but having that as your entire team, then you have kind of what they're going for.
Mm-hmm. I would really love to see the wild area expanded in the future. It was just I loved that a lot. I spent so much time just screwing around, either raiding or wandering, waiting for the weather to change, you know, digging up treasures, going to the nursery, that sort of thing. Just like it's such a fun area to waste time in.
I would have liked to see some more variety in the wild area environments.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's really only a few things that stand out. Like you have the lake, you have the little sandy area and the tower, but I think it would have been cool if we had like a cave
Mm-hmm.
that we could
Oh
have
yeah.
explored too, because that would have been really cool. And then for me, this I don't know if this is a thing with everybody. It seems like that almost every single day, a vast majority of the wild area is covered with a blizzard, so it's mostly ice types.
Well, I mean, yesterday that was pretty much every area in the wild area was that, because it was December 1st or something like that. I do wish they were a little bit more blatant with the events. Like, oh, this event's happening. Like, right now the event is Gigantamax, Dreadnought for Sword, and Corviknight for Shield, when normally they're the other way around, I think. And Gigantamax, Butterfree, and Sandaconda. I wish they were a little more blatant in-game about those events.
Yeah, I don't know that any special events like that were even a thing.
Mm-hmm. I didn't either for a while. I just thought this like, oh, okay, cool, that's just a thing I have. No, apparently it's just like special event stuff. But yeah, no, like I would like more of the wild area, and like Silas said, I would really like that to interlink between like the towns, just like a big giant world map. Because Oros gave us an airship. The Final Fantasy fan in me wants a world map. Go on.
It was literally basically an airship. You just got on Latios Mega Evolved, and then you just kind of flew around the world map.
It was so cool. That was like one of the that was one of the things that made Oros stand out to me, and I loved that remake a lot, despite not liking Gen 3 as a whole.
I'll say Oros was a big improvement over the original edition, which, if it wasn't, that'd be a big problem.
And again, I don't fault people for having favorites, but to say Gen 3 was like the best is I don't agree with that. I don't see that. It's not objectively the best. I've always held the view that you can't really have an objective best in a subjective media in the first place. That's always been my opinion.
I will say there's one objective best, and I don't know which of these is the objective best, but I think you could find which generation has the best way to catch a Phoebus.
Oh my god. Not Gen 3.
Oh, totally Gen 3. Have you ever...
It's like a 1%, and it changes based on the trend, which you have to go to a town and talk to an NPC, and then it's on like 4 predetermined tiles or something, and then even then it's like a 1% chance, and then you have to hope it has a good beauty stat, because contest stats were a thing, so that it could actually evolve into Milotic. Some Phoebuses just couldn't evolve.
I was very surprised that I was just walking around the wild area, and then in the lake, I found the Milotic just swimming around.
Yep, that's how I caught
So
mine too. That's how I caught my first one.
I caught that. And I was like, well, I guess, you know, if I can find a second one, I can breed this and then get the Phoebus, and then don't have to worry about trying to find that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm sure it's probably going to be a pain.
I just think now you just have to trade like a prism scale, which you have to trade now. I prefer not having to trade, because
Trading
that
is
is
a bit
assuming
clunky.
it. It's assuming everyone has people to trade with.
That
So you
too.
just-
That was the biggest thing for me that kind of turned me off from Pokemon games in the past, is because in the era of the Game Boy and the DS, you were limited to local connection. Well, not so much in the DS because you had the Wi-Fi Connect and all that, but in the Game Boy era, if you didn't have a link cord and you didn't have people to like hang out with and actually trade with, you couldn't really do anything with it.
Oh really?
And they tried to remedy that a little bit with Fire Red and Leaf Green, which you had that wireless adapter,
Mm-hmm.
but you still had to know the people.
And you
Yep.
had to have 2 of those
Yeah.
Yep.
instead of 1 cable.
It's kind of clunky in this game because you have to set a code, hope the servers don't crap out, and then hope that someone doesn't snipe the code, which has happened to me more often than I would like to admit.
Yeah, the code's only being about 3 digits long. It seems like a little bit of a problem.
Well, I mean, they're
because
they're
just be-
4, but still,
Oh, they are 4? I thought they were 3.
no.
But still, that doesn't add all that much complexity to it. You can just guess and probably get somebody's code somewhere.
I'm okay with that system existing. I just wish there was a way to directly trade with someone on my Switch friends list. Like, let me have a friends list in game that I could just, that person's online, I would like to send them specifically a trade request, or open a trade specifically to friends only kind of thing, rather than have this code that someone could just like happen to have set, as well.
And even for me, when I was just trying to use local communication to trade with my friend, I had to put the Switch right next to his before it even recognized that we were there.
Yeah. That's kind of almost a problem with the Switch itself, because like it doesn't, like, peer-to-peer in 2019, lol, memes
Yeah.
notwithstanding.
Something we wish that Nintendo would move from.
Nintendo's always been slow when it comes to any matters of the internet ever. That there's always been and will always be. Nintendo is always behind.
It's like the grandparents of games.
Mm-hmm. They make really good games though, so it's like, yeah, Grandma and Grandpa don't know how to set up their Wi-Fi, but they make damn good fudge.
Pretty much. So what else we got for Sword and Shield?
I kind of want to go back to the music and to Piers a little bit more, because I haven't gushed about either enough, but like, just everything, like, I don't know which I like more between Team Yell or Team Skull. I think it's honestly tied, because going from Destroy the World to Street Gang was a huge improvement, and going from, I mean, just musically, Piers' theme is one of the best tracks I've ever heard ever, but like, the music overall, even the Champion theme, I really liked the Champion theme, and I haven't for a good couple of gens. And some people still don't like the Champion theme in this gen, but like, I did.
I like it. It's not to me very impressive compared to some of the other ones. It's good. It's not as amazing as other ones I like.
It is a very great track, and it is very fitting the the tone of what's going on at that exact second in time. It fits the Champion battle quite well.
It does.
Is it my favorite track? God, no. That's probably Piers' theme. But like, I feel like the music is the best the series has put out since Gen 4, at the very least, if not ever.
Trying to remember, because there's one track that I only heard it once, which and I wish I heard it more. I don't think it was Rose's theme. I
Rose
think
had a
it
good
was-
battle theme too, though. Like,
Yeah,
that was just a straight up RPG final boss one winged angel track.
Yeah,
For how
I think
lackluster
it
the fight was and how horrible that plot was resolved, it was still a really good track.
It might have been Rose's theme, because I remember going into that as like, I'm really gonna fight you once, but you're gonna have this awesome soundtrack to it.
Mhm.
There's also Oleana.
Yeah, that was
Oleana
another
had a
one.
good theme. I liked Oleana's character arc overall. very dedicated. You find out, well, I don't know if the game ever directly says it. I think you have to like dig into the lore, but like she was kind of like Bede in that the chairman kind of like took her in, and that's why Garbodor is her like Gigantamax, is because that like Trubbish was her first Pokemon, and she was very poor until the chairman came around to like help her out, and that's why she's so dedicated to him. But like, she had a good theme, really good character arc, really good as the boss of the tower. Overall, really liked it. She was very obviously the bad guy. It would have been a hell of a twist if Rose was also not very obviously the bad guy.
You can call him the bad guy, but I can't really call him like evil.
Oh no, he wasn't evil. He was a
That's the
well-intentioned
best.
antagonist. I wouldn't even say villain because he didn't really do anything villainous up until like the very end, and
Yeah,
for like no reason. It just felt so forced. Like he
to
couldn't
be
wait.
honest,
Go on.
it's like you could say he was. The best way I could describe it is, you know, in like Earthbound, you don't defeat anything; they just become tame.
Yeah, Chairman Rose became tame.
It's like I feel like their mental state just kind of degraded after a while. Like, as you said before, it was like it was insinuated that like these conversations have happened a lot between Leon and Rose.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like his patience just degraded, just everything about him just degraded to a point, and then he finally battles you, and it's like, I forgot how good it was.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me that. Yeah, no, I'm human. It's like I would have liked it a lot more if during every interaction, like they kind of hinted at it a little bit, like Oleon is always cutting Rose off and dragging him somewhere. He never really gets a chance to say anything. I wish that had been more of his character. Like he never gets to say anything and no one listens to him except for like when he's on TV being color commentary. And if they had shown conversations with him and Leon brushing him off, that would have lent some credibility to his plot. But like it just felt so random and forced at the very end.
The whole tower bit, especially, like
He's never late for dinner. He's with the chairman. We better stop him. Why?
I would have really liked to explore that tower some more instead
Yeah.
of just like going in and then going up the elevator.
It could have been a dungeon entirely. They haven't had a dungeon. I mean,
Yeah, they
technically,
really didn't.
Ultra Sun and Moon did, but otherwise, there hasn't really been a dungeon.
Yeah.
I don't even think you could say there was a like when I first found out about the power plant, immediately what I thought to is like the power plant is always usually like a dungeon,
Mm-hmm.
or at least it's some special room with like puzzles in it. But no, this time it was just you go down there, you fight, and then you fight the giant brick elephant, which
Yeah.
I feel really bad for Kaparash because it just turns into a wall with a trunk.
Yeah.
But
And like Rose was kind of really an easy fight. Like, okay, you're making all these guys like steel type, basically pseudo steel type gym leader. Okay, fine. But like my Cinderace was carrying long before this, so
yeah, same. Like, I was using Ninetales.
mhm.
It wasn't a problem.
Like any half decent fire type sweeps that entire tower. And maybe you need to use like an ether or a Lepa berry or something.
I never used a fire type at all, so I only had Surfetched, so that kind of evened it out a little bit.
But even then, Surfetched is really strong against. I mean, not extremely strong, but still can hold out.
Steel or fighting beats steel, so
It does.
Yeah.
so
It's
even then like
easier to fight
Surfetch,
it.
like a good fighting type or a good fire type, it's like for how important this guy was supposed to be to what was supposed to be the plot, not a lot really happened, and for as cool as theme as it was a really anticlimactic fight. My
Yeah.
Cinderace swept so hard. Like, I followed my Dynamax rule, but it's like, if I had Dynamaxed earlier, you would just not have existed. I would have ended your whole career a hell of a lot faster than I already did.
I think the hardest fight I had was the champion fight because it did.
Mhm.
It was the only fight that made me get down to my final Pokemon. And
Yeah.
With that, I was literally down to 1 HP with I need to throw out a max revive, and just I don't care. Just you take out all of them, but I'm max reviving on the same turn that I would technically also die.
Yeah. The Leon was a good fight. The champion fight actually felt like a champion fight. He felt like an undefeated, unbeatable wall of a trainer. And that was very good. Like, the series, yeah, needed that. Because XY's champion was a total pushover. Mega Lucario swept most of it. And the game gives you Mega Lucario, just gives it to you outright. You get a Lucario at the same time you can Mega Evolve.
For me, with Leon, I actually would have lost because my entire team was 5 to 7 levels underneath.
I was at
That
level
is-
with my Cinderace and nothing else. Everything else on my team was lower than everything else on his.
I was mixed. I think at average I was like on level or maybe slightly below.
Like, I don't know what happened because there's like a 5 to 7 level jump between the finals and the champion fight.
Oh yeah, no, it's like going into Bede's interruption, starting the quote-unquote Elite Four, and going from there, I was severely over-leveled, and I was like, God, I kind of regret spending so much time screwing around in the wild area. Get to Leon, it's like, oh, thank God I did. This fight's hard.
Dude, I could have like given all my Pokemon up to like level 70. I
Mhm.
just didn't use the candies.
I would have used the candies if I had actually lost, but like Leon posed a real challenge, and I wanted to fight him fair. And it was my Dynamax Cinderace versus his Gigantamax Charizard, and it was close.
Inteleon versus his Charizard. I didn't Dynamax, I just used Inteleon.
Yeah. I cut out for a few seconds, but like, yeah, it was really close. Like, it was my Dynamax Cinderace versus his Gigantamax Charizard, and it was close. Like, I think I won by a damage roll both ways. Like, I survived with like 13 HP off of a damage roll, and then I won with a high damage crit of some kind on both of our last turns because Dynamax at the same time rule.
I ended up I knew going into it was like when I was thinking about it, because I was in a bad spot, and then I remembered, well, he hasn't sent out Charizard yet, so I just need to get Gyarados up. I got
Mhm.
Gyarados out there. He took out Gyarados because it knows Rockfall.
Yep.
Oh, this is bad.
Like,
So
go figure.
that's when I was down to my last Pokemon with 1 HP. So I threw out Ninetales to do the max revive on his last Dynamax turn. So then I survived on the non-Dynamax moves.
Trying to think.
But like,
I
yeah, no,
actually
it was probably the best champion fight since Cynthia.
It's the most satisfying.
Very satisfying. It's like I went in going, oh my god, I'm sweeping everybody. I'm over leveled. This is sad. On a next playthrough, when I inevitably get shield for whatever reason, I'll make sure not to screw around as much in the wild area, or just like keep a bunch of candies if I absolutely need to. But I'll plan to. And then Leon is like a fair fight. It's like, oh damn.
Oh, now I've got a question, because when I was running around just talking to people to see if anything was different now, just to see if I could do anything now that I've beaten the game, like talk to the guy in who said come back when you're the champion, find out that it's just he teaches me a move now.
Mm-hmm.
That was a letdown. I talked to a guy in Stow on Side who gave me a beast ball,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm read the description of it, and I don't know why I would ever want to use it if it claims to have a low chance of catching anything.
So in Sun Moon and Ultra Sun Moon, they had a lower chance on anything other than an Ultra Beast, and they had a much higher chance on an Ultra Beast. Ultra Beasts don't exist in Sword Shield, so it's pretty much just novelty.
Yeah.
Okay.
There, if you're like
Kind of like a Premier Ball, I guess.
Premier Ball is the same rate as a Pokeball. Beast Ball has a lower rate.
Yeah.
So it's actually worse than a Pokeball. I thought about trying to catch my box legendary in the Beast Ball, but I just kind of wanted to get that done and over with.
It gives me an idea, I might.
But yeah. Any final thoughts? Was there anything else we really needed to like cover at this point? Because I think we've talked about basically every aspect of the game.
I think there's just two things that I want. Two final thoughts I have. One, the ball dude.
Ball dude is
handing out
great.
handing out the random Pokeballs that I can never find anywhere else. And two, the side quest in which town had it? I think it was I can't remember at the moment. Motorstoke.
Motostoke?
Yeah. Help! I lost my Pokemon. And then you go over to the fountain, and a guy pops out of the fountain.
Yeah. It's like the other
Yes.
fountain has the Pokemon.
Yeah. I went up to the fountain and I read the text and I knew it was wrong, but I wanted to see what was gonna happen. And
Mhm.
I'm glad that I chose to find out.
What were you gonna say, Silas?
I don't know if you two did. There's a side quest in Hammerlock, or started in Hammerlock, that had you take a letter from a little girl to.
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
It
the
confused
guy in
me.
Ballinley.
Yeah.
That was depressing. In a good way. It was very well written. Like it also just like made the world feel alive. The Galar region feels very alive with like its NPCs and its lore and whatnot. It actually felt really satisfying to like explore the towns and whatnot.
Speaking of that side quest, this isn't directly related to that side quest, but I found another one while completing that. There's a guy in that same town who says, "Come back to me while wearing fiery clothes," and I can't tell if he's telling me to come back with a certain outfit or if that's his dialogue.
Okay, there is a way to complete that. It's if you want me to explain that.
I have an idea, but I honestly don't know if it's even correct, and I'm at a loss.
Don't try to overthink it.
Like the only idea that I had is do you want me to come here while I'm wearing my uniform? But speaking of, I'm in the uniform shop at the moment.
You need a bit
Speaking of
more.
the uniforms, I really wish you could wear the uniforms like, instead of just your default uniform.
Oh, like in the challenges themselves.
Yeah, in the gym missions and stuff. Like if I'm buying these, I would like to change into them instead of my default one. That would have been a really nice touch.
Yeah.
That's what I originally thought that they were for, but then I found out that no, it's not.
Yeah, I tried to do it with like the ghost uniform, and it's like, nope, couldn't do it. There's no way to like set it to the one you use or anything like that.
That would be a really nice quality of life if we get like an ultra sword, ultra shield.
I'm just sad we don't get like the sponsorship cape.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
Yeah, honestly.
We should. That would be a really good post game. Like, you get your cape, and then you get to refight all the gym leaders and whatever, or take
Each
on
one gives you a
sponsorship
little
deals.
sticker.
Yeah, and then like instead of badges, you get stickers for your cape, and that's like
Like,
your rematch in post game and
And
stuff.
at the end of the credits, you had all those stickers at the bottom. Those could have been on the cape.
Mm-hmm. And then like or maybe sponsorship deals and stuff. Like that would have been fun.
Yeah, from the Poke Jobs and all that.
Yeah.
Overall, I definitely was surprised by how much I liked Sword and Shield. I'm not surprised that I enjoyed it because it's a Pokemon game that I went in with like bottom of the bottom expectations because of all the press and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it's closer to the top of my list than the bottom. At least my list.
Well,
Bottom is definitely X and Y for me.
I can tell you that on my personal list, it's at least in the top 3 generations I've played.
You've played 3 generations.
But I'd say it's probably number 1 because like you said, I do have the that nostalgic feeling for 3 because it's the one that I started off with. But overall, 3 wasn't that great. It's just that this is what I started off with, so I like it more. But I can say with certainty that I didn't really care for Diamond and Pearl or Platinum. It
Right.
just didn't really sit with me.
That's one thing, like, with Pokemon, someone's favorite is someone's least favorite, and, like, someone else's least favorite is someone else's favorite. It's like, it's so polarizing.
Yeah. Then there's me that doesn't find any issue with Gen 3 for some reason.
A lot
I've
of
played
people,
through it
it's their
several times.
it's their favorite, and not necessarily even for nostalgia reasons. There's a couple people I know that, you know, didn't play it on release that actually really enjoyed it.
What I liked most about Gen 3 was just the world. Like
Hmm.
the environments were pretty interesting to me, especially with the ability to dive.
Yeah,
That was pretty cool.
I like that.
that's one thing I never faulted Gen 3. It had a really cool world. Hoenn was a good region.
Besides, like, the right side of it.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
They could have cut it in half.
if they cut out the right side of it, you really wouldn't have been able to use dive.
well, yeah.
I'm thinking, like, they could just, like, cut it in half. Like, the entire section in half. So that, like, you don't have to travel quite as much in Surf and, like, get lost because there's so much water. Because you keep
Oh,
getting
yeah.
into encounters. Unless you use repels.
Yeah.
Oh, that is another quality of life thing that I have not used in Sword Shield. The infinite escape rope.
Yeah, no, that's really
You never
nice.
really need it, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there was
you
there
don't
was only
really
like
need
2
it.
caves, but that's still a really nice quality of life feature nonetheless.
Maybe if we
Should've
had
considered.
that wild area cave, it would be useful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a labyrinthine
Like what they
post-game
did
dungeon
with,
cave.
Gen 4, but do it for the wild area.
Yeah,
It's basically like an entire mine.
that would have been
That
really cool.
that would be cool. It's like what if they had the cave in the wild area, but they had it generated, so like it'd be like the events. An event would occur, and it would cause the cave to change.
Mm-hmm.
So then for the next week or two, it'd be a different cave.
Yeah. Alright, I think we pretty much covered everything we wanted to out of Sword Shields. If you'll want to give individual closing thoughts.
For me, I liked it a lot actually, despite pretty much everything else people have been saying about it,
Mm-hmm.
because it has its qualities. Especially the music, which that's the easy way to get to my heart right there. Like have good music, and I actually exclusively used Gen 8 Pokemon. Like even with Obstagoon and Surf Edge, like you could only get the final evolutions in that generation anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not like that heartbroken about it. It's a bit inconvenient, but oh well. I'm not too bothered.
Yeah, as for me, it was all I can really say is it got me back into it and to try it again. You know, get like a fresh start on it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I've I don't have anything to say I dislike about it because I don't have that huge knowledge base to compare it against. But just going through it, playing it, just it was just something to do casually. I didn't have to feel like, oh, I gotta complete this. So I
Yeah,
really
it
liked it.
never really felt like a chore.
Pretty much.
And as someone else who's been playing since like the very beginning of Pokemon on release, I mean, yeah, my expectations were about as rock bottom as you could get, but I was very pleasantly surprised by how much I actually did enjoy it, despite all the negativity from the fan base. It was still really nice. Like, it was a very fun game, a lot of quality of life. Um, Definitely a step in the right direction at the very least. I do hope they use this as, because it's the first console mainline Pokemon. I hope they use this as sort of like, kind of how Gen 1 felt like a beta to Gen 2. I kind of hope that they use Sword and Shield as a foundation and improve upon it over time with future gens. I would really like that.
I will say that if they keep with the open world and the more cinematic battles, they'll keep me, because that was the second biggest reason that I think I stopped playing Pokemon games, is I was never truly engaged in them,
Mm-hmm.
especially during the fights, because I'm watching the moves happen, and it'd just be, okay, cool, can I get this over with? I'm tired of looking at the same flat images
Yeah.
over and over again.
One last thought for me is, I like how they started off the game instead of like how Sun and Moon did it, because it took forever to start in Sun and Moon.
Yeah, God, that game just would not get off the ground. It took forever. And then Sword and Shield is like, okay, here's the intro and go. Wait, I can just go?
And
go.
make sure not to wake up the Wooloos on your way out.
Well, yeah. Who would do that?
Rude.
Yeah.
That would be very
nobody.
rude. I saw this on
The
Twitter, but there was like,
tutorials
I saw this-
Were actually,
sorry, go on. Go on.
tutorials were actually like more optional. You can actually, because they actually advertised that a bit, I think, that you can actually skip some of the tutorials that, like catching Pokemon. Like, yes, we know how to catch Pokemon now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I think I skipped most of them because when you go through that first battle and it'd
depends
be
on how
telling
you're
you about super effectives, it's like, oh, you already hit me with one. I guess you already know about them.
Yep.
Yep.
Like, one thing I saw on Twitter, going back to the Wooloo thing, Gen 1 is like, oh, there's a sleeping Pokemon in our way. Let's go to, like, a few towns over, get an item, wake it up by
And
force,
play
and
it.
kick its fucking ass. And then Gen 7 is, no, there's sleeping Pokemon. Let's just go around. It's only little tall grass. We'll be fine. I don't want to wake the Pokemon. It's just, I kind of like that tone shift.
To be fair, I'd be mad at the Pokemon too. Like a Snorlax, I mean.
Yeah. But it's like
Yeah,
just a bunch of sleeping Wooloo. We don't have to wake them up. I mean, it's the game's cheeky way of going, by the way, wild grass and trainers and wild Pokemon, you gotta actually do this now.
Yeah, I don't think you could get mad at balls of wool that roll around.
Wooloo is like one of the best things to come out of Gen 8.
That's about it from me, though.
Okay,
Yeah, I
well,
think I'm good too.
overall, much better than the internet wanted us to believe it was. At least in our humble opinions. I definitely enjoyed the game a lot, and hope to see some improve. I would like to see this as a foundation that gets improved upon over time. Keep whatever the composer did, they need a raise, for sure. And I know it's probably the same composer that's done the series forever, but they need a raise. The music was on point, characterization was on point. Just let us do more with the plot, and make the games feel a little more involved, and just build on it over time would be fantastic. But other than that, actually, yeah, much better than the internet wanted us to believe. What them people don't want you to know is that Pokemon Sword and Shield's actually all right. It's actually all right.
Oh, I do have one final thought.
Final
do like
thought.
Yeah, this is my final thought. I really like being able to run from the Bob Your Uncle mascot in my trainer card
Oh yeah.
by posing myself in certain ways.
A friend of mine had their trainer card as being held captive by Leon. It was pretty cool. But yeah, game low key. What they don't want you to know about is actually all right. So, that'll about do it then. Thank you, Error and Silas, for accompanying me on this. Doing a podcast solo would be kind of awful.
Oh yeah.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
I could-
having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this was fun.
I have no idea when or what the next one will be. These just kind of strike me as random. I'm looking at quarterly at the moment, and that's about as close to a schedule for Around the Campfire as I can get. But from all of us here, that'll about do it. So have a wonderful evening. Love your faces and peace.